Hey folks, welcome to our regular town board meeting. Before we get started on the regular town board agenda, we have 3 public hearings to have. 2 of them are on some changes for our zoning, and one of them is on a proposed improvements of our Seneca Falls water treatment and distribution system. So with that, I have a motion to open the public hearing for the proposed improvements at Seneca Falls water treatment plant and distribution system.
I make a motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, so this has been an ongoing thing over the last few months. We're trying to apply for a WIA grant from the state, up to $5 million in funding. And along with that, we are in place, if we get approved and if the board decides to move forward with this, in line for 0% financing for the balance, or a combination of using reserves or whatever. The deadline of this grant has been extended to August 11th, so we need to make a decision tonight. The board does, at least. And from there, we will submit the application. The application is 98% complete by MRB in collaboration with B&L. Okay? This improvements to the water treatment plant and the distribution center were identified in a preliminary engineering report that was done by Barton and Judas a couple of years back, a report that was put together with a grant that we applied for and received. So these are improvements to a 1940 water treatment plant to make upgrades, and obviously to distribution. We're talking about a 100-year-old infrastructure. This is phase 1. The total overall estimate was about $24 million. This is phase 1. Hopefully, if we're successful and the board agrees to move forward, we would be looking at a phase 2 next year. So with that, does anybody would like to speak at the public hearing? You may ask. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing on Town Law 202B?
I make the motion.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried. Okay, I have a motion to open up our second public hearing, proposed local law number 3, amend chapter 213, peddlers, solicitation, transient businesses and mobile food vending. Can I have a motion?
I make a motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This public hearing is to change our local law. The major focus of this is that right now there is no restriction on someone who owns a food truck to open up on Fall Street in front of Parker's, or in front of Red Brick, or in front of Little Italy, or in front of the Goo Hotel. This local law will bring some restrictions and some compliance and some permit applications so that we can better control the situation, and to ensure that food trucks have been properly inspected by Seneca County Health Department. Also would ensure that we know exactly what events they're doing. This does not restrict them from doing special events. This town board and future town boards can make a decision case by case. If it's a Wonderful Life, or if it's a Women's March, or whatever it may be, there's accommodations in the local law for that to happen. Okay? It would come under the Parks and Recreation, just like special events come to the board every month, and the board would make that decision for special events. Would anybody like to speak to that public hearing? You have the microphone. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? Counselor Burrell is probably better equipped than I am.
I do want to point out to the town board and the town clerk, we did receive some comments from the Seneca Falls Business Association some time ago, and revisited the local law based on their comments. but those comments have been submitted to the town clerk and are part of public comment that is submitted during this, so it's part of the record of this proceeding.
Okay, we have a motion to close public hearing on local law number 3, please.
I make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So carried. And can I have a motion to open the public hearing on proposed local law number 4, add chapter 215 to the code, real property, landlords, and criminal activity. Motion for that public hearing,
I
please.
make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? This public hearing is to address another work that we've been doing between a committee of the planning board and the zoning board, Councilor Morrell, MRB facilitating, myself, town clerk Greer, town manager Sosha. We're just looking to clean up rental properties, and this local law will address absentee landlords and make it more difficult for people to just buy a property and then let it go. This will be a requirement that there has to be a local person in charge, somebody we can call saying, we have this issue, we have that issue, et cetera, et cetera. Would anybody like to speak at that public hearing?
Yeah, me. Can we
Absolutely.
speak? We can speak?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
You're public.
in this proposed local law, the fining process, I think it's defective in the sense that if a person doesn't comply, you can fine them up to $500 a month. Okay, so these big apartment places, if they decide, let's first say they get the permit, they comply, they have the permit. Then they get out of compliance, then the penalty is they lose the permit. Well, that's the same as not having the permit. And these huge apartment buildings, the complexes, of which one is being built right now on the corner of, where the bridge is there. They can afford to pay $500 a month and they can stay out of compliance. So, we have no enforcement. If the person's willing to pay $500 a month, they can do whatever they want to do. 500 is not a big enough fine. I think you need to add a zero somewhere, to make it substantial, because 500, I can pay $500 a month myself.
Really?
No. Come on, 500 a month is nothing.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a question on that. So is it the landlord's getting fined $500 a month for whatever compliance that they're out of? But it takes how long to get these tenants out that could possibly be, that's not your problem?
Again, it's
It's a landlord problem.
zoning is a complicated issue, and we are frustrated because Peter Pacelli does a great job of violating people who are not in compliance, okay? And Peter, explain the system. So the first offense, and Kim Rose is here, who also at this time of the year works with Peter part-time during the day and the rest of the time in the assessments office. But Peter, would you explain the process of a violation, step 1, step 2, step 3, please?
Yeah, so you'd send out your first notice. If they didn't reply to that, you send out a second. If they don't,
You have a microphone over there for us hearing impaired?
It's up.
There,
If they don't answer the first or the second, it would go to court, and then it's up to the judge at that point to take care of the issue. That's where we run into the problem. And once it's in their hands, whatever decision they make, there's really nothing we can do.
So first letter, they have 2 weeks to respond?
Yeah, you only have to give them about 7 days. I give them
7 days.
2 weeks.
Second letter,
I'll give them 7 days or another 2 weeks.
7 days.
Yep, and then from there,
It goes to the court.
It goes to court.
Okay. So it takes a little bit of time, and then when it gets to the court, it becomes frustrating because sometimes the people don't show up, and it's adjourned by the courts. and they don't show up again, and it's adjourned by the courts. Sometimes they do show up, and then there's a fine of $100, that's $50, $75. So if you can afford 500, you can afford $50 or $75, and it's very frustrating, okay? But he does not have the authority, or nor does his board, to evict somebody, tow some car away. That would have to come from the court to do that, okay? So we all know of a lot of frustrating properties in town. Some of them are on Lake Road, you know, an ongoing issue. Selling illegal drugs, selling, they don't have a permit for where they're selling it out of it. Multiple vehicles on the property, violation after violation after violation, and here we are. So, as I said, it becomes very frustrating for everybody.
Mike, if I could
Yep.
respond to that.
You have your mic, you have, we
we
got a grant for $30,000.
All right.
We have a state-of-the-art PA system.
All right, so I found that the part that you're discussing there is 215,
You have that on?
I don't know, I thought I did.
Pull it a little closer.
Here, let me see.
What do we gotta do with this?
Let me see. I'll help you out.
All right, so the part that I found, the part, that's simply for
No
failure.
charge.
Failing to register, oh, thank you. That's just for the failing to register part. It's a, you know, it's a flat rate across the board. We wanted to put an amount that would encourage people, really just come down to the town, let us know who they are, let us know who we can contact locally if there's a problem with the property. And that really is, was a large driver of what the purpose of this is for, is we had several properties in town where people that own them are not local and they're rented, and you know, we have nobody to contact if there's a problem with the property, you know, other than, you know, what's on the deed, and they could be anywhere. So we want to get information to be able to contact these people and maybe make this whole thing go a little bit easier. So the part that you're pointing out, yeah, could a very large place afford $500 a month? Probably, but that's also probably not the people that we're most concerned with. The larger properties, they have local people, they have a manager, they have you know, what have you, and you know, for better or for worse, there's at least some communication going back and forth.
Pat, have you,
Yes, a lot of this is addressed to the situation where we do not have communication.
Pat, have you sat down with the magistrates to discuss any of these issues and perhaps explore further enforcement, working with these landlords at all? Because I know at one point we visited that potential, but perhaps use a lawyer to have that further discussion on, because if you know, if they're keep adjourning it out, can they enforce anything further? Because if you know.
Okay.
So
Well,
that is
we're talking about, that's kind of a separate thing. A judge is going to run their own court. You know, this board cannot control
I understand we
the court.
can't dictate it, but can we somehow collaboratively work with the magistrates?
I don't think, I'm not a lawyer, but I think it would be crossing the line for our attorney to meet with the judges, and but I certainly think that the court committee of the board certainly can bring that up when they have their monthly meeting with the court, and tell them that we're obviously very concerned. I've expressed that as a town supervisor on numerous occasions, but again, it's their court type of thing.
Well, Don and I can certainly do that.
Couldn't the town put liens on, rather than turn it over to the court when you build up to a certain amount, you know, of infractions, put a lien against the property and just keep it going? Eventually those liens gotta get paid.
Okay. There's no amount owing under this or a violation of any other part of the code until a judge says so.
Well,
They're all penalties after
but that's
some
if
type of
we
judicial
turn it
proceeding.
over to the courts. What if we don't turn it over to the courts? we hold that debt, they owe us,
You don't have the authority to do that.
we can't do that. And then
No.
we can't
No, this
issue a
is
lien.
not a self-enforcing thing.
Can't issue a lien,
No.
which is really essentially making it a court matter.
Well, there needs to be a debt in order to have a lien.
Right.
And there's no debt unless there's a penalty imposed, and this board does not have the authority to impose a penalty.
Well, we're talking about penalties right there, $500, you know?
If they're found to
Right,
be,
well, then
not be,
that's a
uh,
$500 debt.
they would have to be found by the judge to not be in compliance.
And they would have to not pay it, right?
Yeah.
So if they
Yeah.
pay it, they're up to,
There's no debt. And there's no debt, there's no lien. But all of this is code to be enforced like any other code to be enforced, just like, vehicle and traffic law. When you get a ticket, you don't automatically get a fine. You have the right to go to court and talk to a judge and maybe have a trial and have, you're innocent until proven guilty. Because
And I think this $500 number is way higher than some of the other recommended fines by, the court, 120, 150, right?
sometimes not even.
Not even that.
Who came up with the $500?
Committee,
Oh, the committee.
and again, not reinventing the wheel, just, a lot of other communities use that number. but-
Most of our penalties for violations of our code are $250. And that is taken directly from the penal law statutes, where you have a violation level offense is $250 or 15 days in jail, or things like that. So we took the amount for most of the violations directly from that. Here, it's double. Again, just initially, just looking for initial compliance of people to come down and fill out the application and let us know who we can contact and who's responsible locally for the problem.
Wendy, I don't know if we answered your question or not.
it's perfect.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay, anybody other comments at the public hearing for this? All right, with that, can I have a motion to close the public hearing on this local law 4?
I make the motion.
Thank you, second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried. Any 2 minutes? I'm sorry. I forgot my folder.
You got a microphone, you might as well sing.
There you go. There you go, Pete.
Don't start bringing my guitar.
Sing or dance.
We just need to conduct a review. Well, I didn't have it in mind for tonight.
The whole packet. Okay.
Is that nice?
Yeah, this is the next.
No, I think I have the same.
You guys want to have lunch together or something?
Patience.
So
There's a secret resolution.
it's a resolution, and that's the law.
And then what you
We'll have it
gave
for
me
dinner.
tonight, they have separate.
Yes. But what came with that is.
Monday?
the secret.
Are you playing it or not?
No, I'm not playing in that tournament. Matt's gonna be a free-for-all.
It's a takeout, steak sandwich and salad.
Get those.
Yeah, you got 6 people on a team.
There was an email on something from July 11th. That's the same email that everything else was.
July 11th.
I was saying sometimes, I feel bad for Bill Bell. I didn't have some things going on at my mother's house. I was gonna go out with a 5-gallon pail full of sand.
There's, oh, here it is. Here's the one. Yeah, the message.
It would have been from Sean.
Another agenda? Nikki, you have an extra agenda?
Oh, yes, here, no. There we go.
Okay, I want to call the regular meeting to order. Town Clerk Greer, would you please take roll call?
Mike Ferrara,
Here.
Frank Seneca,
Here.
Steve Churchill,
Here.
Don Dyson. Here. Caitlin Laskowski.
Here.
Randy Thorne.
Thank you. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Yeah, well.
I'll let you. So we have some petitioners to speak tonight. There's a microphone up there. Please use it, and please introduce yourself, your address, and then remind our friends and family that we try to keep it to 3 to 5 minutes, please. So, first petitioner, Martha, how are you tonight?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you. This is that. I'm here tonight to talk about safety.
Martha, excuse me, is that on, please? It is on.
Yes, it
See, I
is.
guess you gotta get a little closer.
Nobody's ever told me I wasn't loud enough.
Use your church voice.
And when I'm done, I'll sing something if you want. Okay, I live at 14 Chestnut Street, and I'm concerned about the dogs in this town. I walk a lot for exercise, and on July 13th, I was walking on East Baird Street when 2 white German shepherds came after me. They were both, I thought, on leashes. One stopped because it couldn't go any further. The other one was not connected to anything. And he kept coming, and all I could do was brace for the inevitable. I had no choice. So actually, I have some pictures here. You can take a look and see what happened. I screamed constantly until the owners finally came out, because the dog was coming back for a second bite. Fortunately, they came out. When he jumped up, he was jumping for my face, and I put my arm up, and he got me.
This dog was unattended, but
They were tied up out in front, but
Okay.
this dog's leash was not attached to anything. It was shredded in the middle. Now, whether the dog chewed it or it wore out, I don't know. But anyway, I called 911. Sergeant Kidd responded. She was kind enough to give me a ride home. And actually, she was kind enough to stop back at my house a week later to check on me to see how I was doing. So I'd like to publicly thank Sergeant Kidd for that. Then my husband took me to the emergency room. I was there most of the rest of the day. And 8 stitches later, that's what happened. Now, last Friday, the chief of police had an article in the paper that said he was concerned about safety and security, and I think maybe a little bit of dog safety is in order. I don't know whether they're ordinances or regulations or codes or what they are, but they need to be tightened up. Dogs need to be in the backyard, not in the front. A dog that doesn't see me is not going to charge me. Wherever you want to put the dog, it needs to be on a chain, not a leash or a clothesline or a rope, something that can rot. I mean, this is upstate New York. You leave them out all winter long. They freeze and they thaw, and they freeze and they thaw. And no matter where you restrain a dog, it shouldn't be able to get any closer to the sidewalk than 10 feet. I can't even walk to the other end of Chestnut Street because those people have a dog that when it sees somebody coming, it runs out and it can actually cross the sidewalk. In fact, fortunately, I just saw it coming at me and I was able to jump into the road, so I don't go that way anymore either. One of my very favorite places to walk is the Ludovico Trail. I don't go down there anymore because despite the sign at the entrance that says you must restrain your dog, it has to be on a leash, nobody does. Last year I was down there and this guy had 2 big, huge black dogs and they were running all over the place, and I said, "Do you have a leash for those 2 dogs?" And I can't even repeat what he said to me. So I turned around and I left, and I haven't been back since. So, I mean, it's not just old people like me walking around. There's young mothers with babies in strollers. There's Amazon people and DoorDash people and the mailman. I mean, the people next to us have invisible fence, and their dog stays inside the fence. But the mailman has told them that their dog is out. I'm not delivering. So, I mean, it's an issue. This was a very traumatic event. I've never been bitten before. Never rode in a police car either. That was kind of fun. But we have to do something because you have kids, grandkids. You don't want to see that on your little kid's face. And it could have been. But when I was lying in the emergency room waiting to be stitched up, all I kept thinking is, what if this had been May or June and I was a first grader walking to a bus stop? My face is about right here, right where the dog's mouth is. So I'm just asking you, please talk about this. When you get talking about safety and security in the town, please talk about this.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for your traumatic experience.
Thank you.
That's awful, first of all. Second of all, I will sure to follow up with Sergeant Kidd tomorrow to see if we've followed up with this situation in this particular case, okay? And then I will have a conversation with our animal control director and see what things are going on, that we can do things a little bit better to help this. You're the second person in the last week that I know of that's been bitten. In another owner of a restaurant on Bridge Street who was bitten by a dog. The dog was unlicensed, the dog was unleashed, et cetera, et cetera. So we've been dealing with that part of it as well.
Fortunately, this dog had all its shots,
Yeah.
and I was grateful for that. And if you want to give that person my name, I'd be happy to talk to him or her and give them some information. But this shouldn't have happened to anybody. And I'm just lucky. You know, I go to the gym and I do the best I can at my age, and all I kept thinking is, don't fall down, don't fall down. If that dog wasn't connected to anything, I couldn't turn and run, it would have come after me. So I just had to stand there and wait. So this is...
Thank you very much for coming forward. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You sure you don't want to hear a song? Sure you don't want to hear something? Something peppy?
Thank you.
Okay, our second petitioner is Allison Coates. Allison, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Allison Stokes. I'm a scholar and a clergywoman, now in my 80th year. My home is at 63 West Baird Street. I've owned it for 20 years. Built in 1830, it is located in the historic district. In 2016, I moved to an apartment in Rochester, where I live. I take 5 minutes tonight with several news updates. First, there is now a real estate sign with sold in my West Baird Street front yard. The house was on the market for just a day when a woman buyer in a distant state gave a full price offer with no conditions. The closing is set for September 1st. I've had no direct contact with the buyer, but I'm told that she values the house as much as I do for apparently the same reasons: its history and the history of Seneca Falls. Second, I tell you I have an agreed upon day and time this month to have a half-hour phone conversation with Dr. Harvey Flad. For anyone who doesn't know, he is a Vassar College professor who is working on a profile of the Seneca Falls community. He is talking with many, many different people in order to include a wide variety of experiences and perspectives in his report. I am particularly eager to speak with him because in the early 1980s, I was privileged to serve as Vassar College chaplain for 3 years. I left to fill in as associate university chaplain at Yale. And my daughter is a Vassar graduate with a double major in psychology and philosophy. If you were wondering why Dr. Flagg is doing a character study of our community, it's because, as I understand it, his report is required for SMI to expand its landfill beyond the current closure date of 2025. Why the requirement? Because Seneca Falls has been formally designated as a disadvantaged New York State community. Disadvantaged. How many citizens are aware of this? Given the many, many empty storefronts on Fall Street, you may accept that our town is economically disadvantaged. However, studies show that cancer rates are higher here than in geographically surrounding areas. This is a significant quality of life disadvantage. I relocated to Rochester, as some of you know, after I had a surprise diagnosis of breast cancer. There is no cancer or history of cancer whatsoever in my family. I attribute this to toxic air or toxic water or both from SMI. Yes, over the years, Seneca Falls has greatly benefited by money from our host agreement with SMI. Even so, I conclude by reconfirming my long-term commitment to advocating for the health, well-being, and prosperity of the people of Seneca Falls and for the town itself by suggesting that the SMI landfill must close by the end of 2025. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Okay, our third petitioner, not really a petitioner, he's a presenter. Tony Aprino is here to give the board a very brief overview of a proposal. Tony represents Greenleaf Builders.
Yep.
And Tony is, in his company, along with Ithaca Housing, is very interested in the 2 Fall Street property. So Tony, it's all yours.
Thank you. So I can't sing or dance. So I'm just gonna go through, and I am from Rochester too, so. So my name's Tony Dorpino from Greenleaf Builders, also Taylor the Builders. We're a developer GC based out of Rochester, New York. We've partnered with a number of not-for-profits throughout the state of New York and along the East Coast. Our primary focus, again, is housing, both market rate housing and affordable housing. We applied for or our partner, INHS, the Neighborhood Housing Service, applied for the RFQ at 10 Fall Street. Unfortunately, they were not awarded the project, but I am here personally myself here just to hopefully reinvent that interest to you guys. And if there's an opportunity for an RFQ to be represented for 10 Fall Street, we have interest in the adjacent property, which is 2 Fall Street, with the owner. We've had ongoing conversations. Our hope is to purchase 2 Fall Street along with, again, identifying and having a representation of the RFQ for 10 Fall Street and putting together an affordable project in that vicinity. Our affordable projects, again, for the record, I go to municipalities all the time and meet with mayors and supervisors, And our affordable projects, just for the record, are based on people that already live within the community. It's based on workforce housing. There's a large majority of individuals who are part of our team throughout the state of New York that co-collaborate with us. We have constant communications with the governor. We have constant communications with her team, with the emphasis of affordable housing really being pushed throughout the state of New York. This was one area that was asked by our team and other members of our co-development partnership to present to you guys tonight.
So you say affordable housing, is it low-income housing?
So I think there's a misconception when the word is saying low income. It's necessarily based on average median income. So what we do before we go to a city or a suburb of any sort, we do a market analysis to make sure there's demand for it. Most housing is based on, again, average median income, which might be anywhere from 40 to 70%. We try to incorporate a small section of senior housing because there's always a demand for senior housing. So it might be a combination of mixed use. Again, it's just we're tossing a lot of ideas around, but again, I go to various cities throughout the state of New York and on the East Coast, and we talk about what types of projects are advantageous for the community. I've had previous conversations with other members when the initial RFQ was released, and there was a focus more on market rate housing. We do that also, but in this particular community, we like to do an affordable project. Our affordable housing project, which I would welcome you guys to see our website or make a visit to any of our sites. You could not tell the difference between a market rate project and our affordable project. So just for the record, just in terms of seeing the difference, there is none in terms of the quality.
When we say affordable, we talking about subsidized housing?
There'll be probably a certain section, INHS, which is Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Service. They have a small section typically in all their projects. They have a section 8. But it's all based on, I'm hearing a lot of stories here about landlord issues or collecting rents and fees and fines and all that. Our partners throughout the state of New York are not-for-profit partners like INHS. They have a strong command of their clients and their tenants. So they don't experience the same situations that it seems like every community has with 2-family, 3-family, 4-family houses or whatnot. So.
Well, your places don't rent with all your different people that you want in there.
Yeah.
Do you go to strictly section 8?
No. There's always there's a way, like we're doing a project in Rochester right now. We have about 10 projects going around, I'd say within the state of New York right now. And there's always a waiting list. We're finishing one in Penfield right now that's probably, it should be done within the next 30 days and there's like 70 people on the waiting list. So there's never a situation where we're looking.
Well, you're talking a complete different
No, I'm not.
place. You got Penfield.
I'm just saying that so I can tell you, I've been in Albany, I've been in, throughout, you name the city, I've been there.
Seneca Falls.
What's that?
That's a lot bigger than Seneca.
No, I'm just saying, I've been in Cortland, I've been in a lot of different communities. I mean, you guys name.
Would this be in competition with the same, because are we
Okay.
doing the same thing behind Kids Territory?
Competition with whom?
Well, the same development or developer behind Kids Territory, aren't we doing the same thing behind there?
Kids Territory, that proposal is with another developer.
Right.
With affordable housing as well.
I just feel like
okay?
we're approving a lot of affordable housing before we know what's going on.
Hold on.
Okay.
Wendy, let the board talk, please.
There is, that's another project that
Thanks, Steve.
will be contingent upon, A, we get funding for infrastructure, and B, the board has not considered even the proposal yet as far as the officially granted the proposal.
Yeah, we're
But
just.
that would be similar to, behind Kids Territory, remember there's some housing, actual units of houses, part of it, and other ones are part duplexes and so forth.
And those were how many units, including housing?
The proposal,
Yeah.
I don't remember.
And this is how
I'm
many?
saying probably 50, Caitlin,
So
off
it's
the top of my head.
really like just a concept right now. The existing building are probably about 32 units potentially. And then the existing building at 10 Fall Street and the land adjacent to it would be probably like another 30 to 40.
I just don't, okay. All right.
Again,
I-
he's presenting, the board will ultimately make this decision. It will be discussed in executive session tonight. We have obviously a proposal that is in our hands from Matt Bell that was here last month. this proposal. I have a third proposal that was I received today. So there's a lot of discussion and a lot of work, and the board will ultimately make the decision. But Tony, I've been trying for a long time to explain affordable housing. Maybe you can do a better job for me.
Can I ask my question first?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you mentioned 40 to 70%. You just said two numbers, 40 to 70%. Of what number are you talking about?
Whatever
40
that-
to 7%
So
of
what I said earlier would be the average median income. We haven't done a market analysis, but we know.
Okay, so what is the average mean income then?
So-
I mean, if you're saying 40 to 70% of a number you don't know, why are you even saying 40 to 70%?
Because the question was asked, is there section 8? So I brought up that range. And what I did also say is that we do a market analysis. We don't come to a city unless there's a demand for that, and we've been requested or directed by certain individuals, certain groups of people, the governor of the state of New York. So
I really don't care what you build. If you say 40 to 70% of what? What is the number?
So
I
the-
mean, how can you
So-
say 40 to
so
70% of what?
So are you familiar with the average median income?
What is it? You're the builder.
Are we talking about single family earners,
What is
two
the
income,
average
three?
mean income in Seneca Falls?
Most likely,
Just out of
I
curiosity.
guess throwing a dart at the wall is probably about $68,000.
How much?
Okay. All right, well,
bet
that's
you.
all you had to
How much,
say.
Tony?
I bet you $68,000 to $78,000 is
Below
probably,
60s.
It's below 60.
yeah, so
I
that's,
I'm not, don't quote me, but I think
yeah, so,
54,000 sounds about right. Okay, but don't quote me.
That's all I was
Yeah.
asking.
No, I know. No, no.
well, when I said that, it was based on a direct question, that's all. So I apologize for any some ambiguity.
Well, we certainly can't make any decisions
No,
tonight.
no.
I'm just here to talk about the topic, guys.
Executive session.
Yeah, but just to provide you some information, no decisions at all. In the executive session either, just, so everybody's up to date.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
fine.
how many, okay, so 10 Falls Street, so I don't have to read it or try to figure it out.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so 10 Falls Street used to be the old town offices. How many apartments,
You said 30 to 40.
30 to
32.
40 in there? How
Yeah,
many-
we realistically, the way that the current building sits there right now, it doesn't have it can't be utilized in its current state right now. So that would have to be knocked down. We would utilize 2 Fall Street and incorporate approximately 30 units in there, plus or minus.
So there'd be 30 units in
Yep.
2 Falls Street, the old hospital.
Plus or minus. Again, we haven't done the fit out yet.
And then how many in the old town offices there?
I think you said tear it down.
So what I just said was, we're gonna take down 10 Fall Street.
I'll take it down.
We're gonna utilize 2 Fall Street and potentially put in approximately 30 units. We're gonna take down, we would take down 2 Fall, city-owned building, 10 Fall Street, excuse me, and then we would incorporate the land where the building sits and the land around it and put up brand new buildings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was our intent.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
I'm on board now.
Because as it currently states, I mean, I just drove through that whole area, and there's a lot of people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So our objective is to bring in the housing, clean up the area, and focus on the community, regardless if it's affordable or market rate housing.
Tony, is there a requirement, or is the plan, does it involve tax credits, and if so, are there covenants in those credits?
Yeah, there'll be tax credits, no question about it, historical tax credits, state funded.
Historical tax credits?
It'll be,
I'm not sure that qualifies, that area.
actually, it won't be historical tax credits, excuse me, but it'll be tax credits of some sort.
Are there covenants associated with those tax credits?
Yes, yep, there'll be duration of time, well, there'll be 30-year ownership. So INHS, if you look up, again, I gave you guys a packet, and I didn't mean to bore you guys with that information, but if you guys read through it, you'll see the history of INHS. I mean, they're one of the most reputable not-for-profits in the state of New York, and they do a ton of work in the Ithaca market. They're doing a project with me in Portland, soon to be, that we're getting kicked out of the ground. I've done work with them in the past. In my previous life, when I was home leasing, I was the president of home leasing for years out there. Then before that, I was at Krista Construction. So I've been doing this for 25 years as a developer and as a GC. Again, we come to every community and we just talk about this. And there's always pushback here and there for either market rate housing or affordable. Our goal is just to work with the community, collaborate, and figure out what's best, but assuming that there's demand, that's all.
Ithaca Housing is in the middle of a major renovation of some property in Romulus that was formerly owned by the depot that Ithaca Housing does control type of thing, they own it. type of
Yes,
thing.
yep.
But they're in the process of a major renovation down there.
Yep, and they're again, they're very tremendously reputable. We come heavily backed by investors ourselves. You know, our organization's been doing this for over 40 years. Our president's been doing this for 45 years. We're about, by the end of 23, we'll probably be a $100 million company. Again, I've been doing this for a long time, so.
So
When
you,
you, I'm sorry.
you actually don't, I mean, once you build it and develop the property, then you turn it over to another company, essentially to.
Yeah, typically what we do is, as a developer, we go into a project, we collaborate with a partner, most typically a not-for-profit. We have a joint venture agreement from the development to the construction. Once the construction is complete and I'm satisfied, then I hand it off, the baton, to the not-for-profit, and they maintain ownership with covenants, like this gentleman had noted, for over, I think it's 30 years. So they have a responsibility not only to themselves, but to the community.
I know, but a lot of times these projects go from one entity to another entity.
No,
entity.
it doesn't happen. In the covenants, it doesn't allow for that to happen.
All right.
I've been doing this a long time, it doesn't allow for that to happen. Whereas, in every town, if it's Rochester, if it's Albany, if it's, smaller communities, you have 2 families, 10 family buildings constantly being exchanged hands. And, I've taken over buildings in Rochester, I can speak of specifically, where the mayor has contacted our organization to clean up these buildings that have been, under duress and stress because the landlord wasn't taking care of it, or there was exchange of ownership. It doesn't happen with this. There's too many covenants in place to make sure that the building is taken care of, the tenants are taken care of, and the community is taken care of. So.
Wendy, do you have a question?
I'm good. I just know that most of these big places that come in, the money they get is grant money because they're homing so many subsidized income people. And I just feel like with the projects that we have, another one before we jump ship on something, we should see how one.
It's a fair question. I would welcome anyone in this room to come to one of our projects, and I can guarantee you'll change your mind on anything that I do.
Well, I just, we have a lot of great management companies here, and for Staten Meadows, for example, and I've personally seen what happens there. It's not you guys. I'm sure you'll clean it up after somebody maybe destroys a place, but the fact is it happens.
Yeah, with again, you're laughing at those papers I gave you. The typical covenants, and it sounds like you're familiar with them. I mean, they're like this thick. So if these not-for-profits stray away from these covenants, there's fees and penalties, and it doesn't. Again, I've been doing this for a long time. I don't want to admit how long, but you want to make sure you maintain the strictness to the covenants because there's just too many pre-penalty issues there. So.
Yeah, I would like to see some of your developments 10, 20 years later.
Yeah.
Not current ones, not a year or two old. I'd like to see something that you did 10 years ago.
Yeah, I've given you guys some lists in there, but anytime you want to see one, I can meet you at a site, and I can show you what you should want to see realistically is the properties that INHS takes care of. Because once we're done with construction, we hand off that, like I said, that baton. So INHS has the 30-year, typically 20 to 30 years, mostly 30-year covenant where they need to make sure that they follow those strict guidelines. So you can come see my site, of course, anytime you want, but your question should be really directed towards their properties because you're going to see me hand off the baton to them.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Anything you want. I can meet you at any site. Lynn Traum, who's the executive director of INHS, she would love to meet you guys anytime at one of their sites. It'd be a pleasure.
Okay. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys. Thanks for your time.
We'll be in touch, okay?
I'll try my singing next time.
Okay. Would anybody would like to enjoy the privilege of the floor at this moment before we move on? Yes, sir. Mr. Calabrese, how are you today?
Display mic, Mike. Thank you. I'm going to pass out my document here to everybody. It comes into play in a few minutes. Next one. Mike, you already have a copy.
I do.
Attorney Morrell, you have a copy of what I'm passing out here. It's the same letter.
Oh, it's a,
Sure.
Thank you.
And Code Officer Roselli, you have a copy, it's the same letter.
Okay.
I'm not leaving you unintentionally. My name is Mike Calabrese. I own a commercial property at 49 West Berry Street in Seneca Falls. I'm here tonight to ask the board to act on my behalf. And before, Mike, my next statement, if you would sit tight for a moment, this focuses on a sign at 30 West Berry Street. You know of what I'm talking about. Now, I don't have a problem with the sign.
I'm sorry, I don't, I'm sorry.
All right, well, we'll leave it at that. You'll figure it out later with the letter. What I have a problem with is what I see is some unequal and unfair treatment from the Historic Commission. I've had a application denied, and I've seen an application for this property I just referenced given instantly a temporary assignment and approved within 30 seconds. I'm not here tonight to debate that. What I'm here tonight for is the letter that I've given you was issued 7 weeks ago to the chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission. I've received no answer. I expect an answer. Now, the Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission. It answers to the public, but more than that, it answers to this board. So tonight, I challenge the board to free the ice, break the ice, do whatever you gotta do to get me an answer. All the details, my position, my suppositions, my beliefs are in the letter, detailed chapter and verse, citing town codes, etc. We're not going into that tonight. All I'm asking for tonight, bust it loose, get me an answer. I don't want to place this squarely in your laps, but this is where it's ended up. I'm not waiting another 7 weeks. Questions? Yeah, please.
Just a point of clarification.
Yes.
Okay? This board appoints people to the Heritage Commission. We appoint people to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We appoint people to the Planning Board. Okay?
Okay.
This board has no authority over any of those three boards. Okay? They're separate entities. We have no authority. I'll be more than happy to reach out.
Well, unfortunately, I asked this question weeks ago, and I was told the Historic Preservation Commission reports to the board. I was told
don't know
that.
who told you that. I have no clue.
I know who told me that. We're not getting into it tonight, but I asked that question specifically to find out who the boss on the ladder was. It landed squarely at this board.
Okay, can I have a timeout?
Absolutely.
Attorney Rowe, am I wrong, or am I all wet like I usually am? Or?
You appoint the HPC, but they don't necessarily answer to you. They're their own entity.
Okay, then.
Just like the planning board, just like the zoning board of appeals.
So you're telling me that I'm hanging out in space?
I'm not saying that. What I was going to say to you, I'd be more than happy, as a town supervisor, to reach out to Chairman Jenko to say, out of common respect and decency,
There you go.
you need to respond to people, okay?
There you go.
And then if you don't get one, I will be by your side at the next Heritage Preservation Committee meeting, and we will both demand some respect.
Well, all right, let's not go there. We're not going to get into the weeds. Again, it's all in the letter, all right? But now that you tell me this board, the commission does not answer to this board, I would give Chairman Jenko 2 options. Answer the letter or resign. It's that simple.
I don't have this board.
I'm not asking you to force him to resign. I'm sending a message to Chairman Jenko tonight. He will see this video. Okay, 7 weeks is too long to answer. Now, I've heard he's a busy man, he travels, the violin music just goes on. Everybody's got an excuse. Okay? So I'll leave it at that. I'll answer any questions from the floor or from the board. You have my letter.
I agree with you 100%.
Fair enough? I thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Mike, thank you for your indulgence, and we'll see what rolls out from
I'll
here.
let you know how I make out with my conversation.
I would be most appreciative of that. Thank you.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak to the board?
Excuse me.
Okay, then we're going to proceed with the rest of the agenda. I do have some updates before we do that. that I must share with people. Just some updates on drainage. You know, a lot of work is being done around town. Drainage is coming under the direction of Water and Sewer Department because a lot of the drainage issues are connected to sewer lines. So it only made better sense to have Water and Sewer work on a lot of this stuff. They also have a very much more experienced staff with many people who are been around and know some ins and outs about some drainage and local knowledge type of thing. But a lot of things are going on issue by issue. If you go up to 414, you'll see a lot of work done there. We've working in collaboration with the state DOT. We're digging out some ditches over there that have been a problem. Not recently, but 2 years ago, a lot of flooding happened on 414. The Lutheran Church has been flooded out on numerous occasions. One of our manholes was buried in the flag, so to speak, and the drainage, the water wasn't going anyplace, so our manhole was being inundated with storm water, so we're slowly but surely working on that, okay? We've been talking about some drainage projects. Councilperson Dyson asked me a couple of weeks ago about some updates, okay? And I have some information for you that, Frank, could you pass that over to Steve, please?
Oh, sure.
I'm playing some catch up. I haven't been here in a little bit.
Okay, again, Caitlin.
Sorry, I'm playing some catch up. All right, so I haven't been here in a couple of meetings. Are you, okay, so the drainage issues, so all the complaints that I get, I now have to go through Water and Sewer?
Nope.
Who do I go through?
Me.
Why?
Well, then
I don't go through the highway anymore?
You can, yeah, you can. Yeah.
But you just said it goes through the Water and Sewer Department.
Well, you can go through both, but Water and Sewer
I'm
and,
confused.
nope, Water and Sewer and the highway are collaborating together on the projects. So highway has done some projects on J Street. When Water and Sewer has some bigger issues, one guy from Water or Highway might be going over and helping out with that particular project. So it's kind of like more collaboration and working together to get things done.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so
Gotta do that with Jim
there's
first.
two major projects that are outlined here. The first one is Barrett Street Pump Station. And Tim Carpenter from MRB is here, who's putting these, looked at this situations and is working on a game plan. So Tim, I'll let you speak to the Barrett Street Pump Station first.
Barrett Street Pump Station. Yeah, so down at Barrett Street, we have the pond there. It's Sampson Creek, is that correct?
Benton Pond.
Benton Pond, excuse me. And the culvert, which joins there down to the canal, is full of debris and doesn't drain that area very well. So in the big rainstorms, the water level really comes up in the pond there, creating a lot of trouble for the homeowners that are around the pond. So one of the items, it also seems to have undermined the road that crosses over Barrett Street right there and created some problems there. In looking at ways to resolve this, one of the things that could be put in is a pump station which would pump the storm water, the water in the pond, through the existing conduit under the road in a smaller pipe, which would transfer the water to the canal more efficiently during times when it was raining outside. In looking at the problem, we found that water just doesn't drain through the existing conduit, and going into to fix that large culvert, which is about the size of a doorway, would be very difficult and costly. Whereas a new smaller pipe, which could be threaded through the existing opening, could be done more efficiently. And then the water pumped with pumps to bring the water level down. So Mike had asked me to look at that, and we've taken an initial look at that.
So basically, Tim, it would be realigning the current culvert with a smaller pipe. And with the pump station, if I understand it correctly, we'd be able to control the water where we can't do that now.
That's exactly right. It could be pumped down to a lower elevation than it is now, creating more of a storage area for big storms as well.
So the pump station would be right by the culvert?
pretty close to there. We'd have to find a location for it because the state owns the highway right away right there, so it'd have to be located on some kind of property where we'd find an easement to locate the pump station right there in the water.
Well, seeing that Benton Pond and the canal are connected below the surface of both, they are both at the same level. And we put an unmanned vehicle in there a few years back, and it's much bigger than a door. I don't know if you've seen it, or have you ever seen it?
I've seen the underwater video that was taken. I've seen the dimensional data on the original drawings for it.
Yeah, it's much bigger than that, but the water levels are always equal there. I don't know how you're ever going to pump, if you pump this over in the canal, you're just, it's one. Essentially, it's one body.
What we're talking about is, besides putting the pipe through, is also filling that interstitial space to disconnect them from being at the same elevation, to allow the pond to be at a lower level and pump water out into the canal. Filling that area with grout under the roadway.
So there would be no natural flow anymore, is what you're proposing.
There'd be natural flow through the new pipe that we put in, and then during high flow periods, the pumps would force water through that same pipe. So it'd be a combination of natural flow and then pumped flow during high water events.
And you're saying, and when the pump goes, is there gonna be a big check valve in there?
Yes, there is.
Sounds like a real Rube Goldberg to me.
Stormwater pump stations.
The situation that's existed there now has existed for nearly 100 years, right? And the water still flows. I've never seen the water, I wasn't aware of any water causing problems to any of the neighbors' property because they're quite a bit higher in elevation than Benton Pond, even when it is very high.
So,
I mean, if it got high enough, in the middle of Benton Pond is a manhole cover to the sewer system.
3.
And I don't think it's ever gotten high enough
Oh,
to
100%, 100%.
into the sewer system.
Into the sewer system. The manholes are inundated with water and stormwater going directly into the sewer system. The manholes, I've seen it with my own eyes 2 years ago, the manhole covers are blown off.
Well, but that could be because of other water getting into the sewer system.
No, it's
Beyond Benton Pond.
But you gotta remember, Benton Pond is the end result of most of the south side of the town's drainage.
Well,
okay?
yeah, there's,
So
what's the?
if you want to see pictures of
Ulysses
Tim Snyder's
and
house,
Creek.
who's downstream, okay, or upstream, I should say, pictures of Tim Snyder's house during rain events, and other town employees up on Garden Street, all the water from 414 south comes down into that area, and we're talking about massive flooding on White Street, massive flooding on Spring Street,
Spring Street
okay?
is bad.
All over the place.
I lived on Spring
so-
Street.
And the problem is that the water's not going to where it's supposed to be going fast enough.
And that's 90% of that is because the state, they just cleaned it out, I realize that, but they haven't historically kept it clean, and it was absolutely chucked, just choked right up. I mean, that's a man-made issue that we could easily resolve. I mean, the maintenance, and the state needs to redo this. I mean, we're right back to the same place. This is not our problem. Both creeks belong to New York State. Benton Pond belongs to New York State. The canal belongs to New York State. The only part that nobody can find ownership for is the piece that goes underneath Bayard Street. That's absolutely ridiculous. Although the state did say when they put their cones there 5 years ago that they were going to repair it. They said it. DOT said we're going to repair this, or canals, whatever. And then they stepped back. And I don't know why they just don't redo it. Just redo it. Put a bigger culvert, just a natural flow culvert underneath there. It'll take the water, keep it clean, keep some sort of barrier out there that keep the debris away.
Well, like you said, it's been going on.
The solution to me sounds like a Rube Goldberg. Next thing you know, we're going to be buying new pumps for $300,000 when one burns out, or we need a second pump, or it's not the solution. It's not the solution. The solution is to get the state to fix the damn thing.
Like you said, it's been going on for 5 years, and the state, the Canal Corporation, not DOT, Canal Corporation, and they're not gonna fix it.
Let's take it to court.
Again,
Let's take it to court and let a judge decide.
if the majority of this board wants to take it to the court, 100%, we
Let's
can
talk
do
about
that.
the executive session.
Okay, 100% can do this. This is not going to be a decision that's going to be taken on tonight, obviously. I'm just giving you some updates of what we were looking at. And by the way, we received a $30,000 grant that we applied for the engineering services to study this situation. Okay? So,
Well, if we do too much, then we are gonna own it.
well, 5 years later, we're still having the same discussion.
Should have gone to court 3 years ago, and I think
if
we
you
were
want
opposing
to,
it.
if you want to address the people of Seneca Falls' needs for drainage, this is a major way to do that. If you want to address their needs. If you don't want to address their needs,
You may think so. I don't think there's a pump big enough to do it.
anybody else on the board think so? Caitlin, do you think so or no? That this will, this, we
I was
have,
just appreciative of this presentation. I really wasn't listening to your guys' argument.
no, I'm just saying, you get a lot of complaints about drainage, right?
Yes, I do. I have pictures.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for the presentation.
Oh, he's not done yet, though. Okay, and a more notable thing, we also take a look at
Johnson Street.
Johnson Street, but I don't think it was added to my, oh yeah, it was, okay. So we have Johnson Street flooding issues, and which handles some stuff off of Cuba Street, et cetera. So Tim has put together a proposal for that, some ballpark numbers. This, if you remember, will provide a culvert underneath the railroad tracks to take care of the flooding in that area, okay? And this was something that I think is doable now, and I bring it to your attention because I'd like to get started ASAP. If it's something that you approve, we can start working on a design. We have money in our drainage budget that would cover the expenses of it, and we can get started. But Tim, I'll let you talk about Johnson Street.
The Finger Lakes Railroad, which crosses Johnson Street, drains an area of about the size of 2 football fields that are really in play right here. It drains that through an existing 4-inch diameter conduit under the train tracks, which is simply way too small for the amount of stormwater that's generated on those properties. By replacing that 4-inch conduit with about a 36-inch conduit of pipe under the railroad, it would drain that whole area quickly and really resolve 3 or 4 or more houses along that area and allow Johnson Street to drain much better. We had a meeting with Finger Lakes Railroad to see how they would feel about a new pipe underneath the railroad. They have no objection to it. They need to see the full plans, but they even allowed that they would not charge an application fee and would review the design and then endorse it if it meets their standards. But a larger pipe there would allow natural drainage down into the canal from that point and drain it quickly so that it wasn't in the backyards of the houses along Johnson Street.
How big, I didn't hear how big the pipe is currently.
4 inches.
4 inches?
Right, so leaves and anything blocks it up.
4 inches.
So the railroad is not willing to help pay for it, but they're willing to put their okay on it if we'll flip the bill.
That's correct.
Surprises you.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Thank you. But now, if they don't approve our drawing or your drawings, what happens then? Then we have to start over and keep this?
It would be a negotiated process, but having met with the coordinator that will review it, I'm quite comfortable that we'll get to yes on this eventually. It shouldn't be too difficult.
This will come through the infrastructure budget line, I'm assuming? What is this?
We allocated $1 million in drainage for drainage.
How much do we have in that budget line still?
I don't think a whole lot's been spent. I don't know the exact number, but there hasn't been a great deal spent out of that budget. I don't know exactly what the bottom line is, but I would say
I bet there's 950,000 in there.
So that would cover this whole thing? this
I'm
whole-
sorry?
That would cover this whole
Yes.
job?
That job's not gonna cost $1 million,
Job-
It's gonna
but
$6
$30,000.
about
414,000, the ballpark number is 414.
The cost estimate I prepared is for about $415,000, which includes the engineering and includes a 30% contingency. So I would hope that we'd get in well below the $415,000 total number. It'd be publicly bid, so we can't really predict exactly what that cost would be.
How many feet long would the pipe be?
About 120 feet.
120 feet. So, I mean, there's a fixed price for the pipe, no matter where you go. I mean, the pipe is the pipe. I mean, I could call the county highway superintendent and find out how much the pipe costs. You know, they buy the pipe every day, but, let's say the pipe costs $100 a foot. That'd be a little over 120,000. Where the heck does the other $300,000 come in?
The cost of drilling a hole underneath that for 120 feet while you insert the pipe into the hole is where the cost comes. It's a complicated piece of equipment that only a large general contractor would have. It's not just digging a hole in the earth and putting the pipe in there. It has to be done straight underneath the railroad with a big drilling machine.
Oh, 12,000.
120 feet at $100.
Yeah.
So Mike, what do you need from us tonight on this?
Well, first of all, if any more questions, I guess, and second of all, I would entertain a motion to allow Jim and MRB to begin the design. I need your approval to begin design of Johnson Street. I'm not talking about Benton Creek, I'm talking about Johnson Street.
So
Make a motion for the design of Johnson Street.
This would be, and it would be safe, right? You put a 36-inch pipe, a kid can get sucked in real quick.
That's right. It would have an inlet structure of big steel bars crossing them, maybe at 12 by 12 inch intervals to keep debris and children out of it.
Yeah. Well, even getting sucked in against that steel grating, and it really has to be, you hear about these incidents all the time, animals, kids.
We'd have an inlet structure which would spread it out to much wider than the pipe, say 15 or 20 feet wide, to help to decrease how quickly the water would be moving at any one spot.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second? Oh, sorry.
I made the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So all in favor of moving forward with the design aspect of Johnson Street, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, anybody opposed? Okay, Tim, I'll get you an engagement letter, okay?
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question before you, what would be the timeline on this project?
It'll take 4 or 5 months for me to get the design complete and secure the approval of Finger Lakes Railroad, which will put us into the winter. We'd probably bid it then in the winter and hope to construct it in the spring as soon as heavy rains and snow melt ends.
I got another question.
Yes, sir.
How many easements are you gonna have to secure?
It looks like there are 3 properties where we'd like to have easements. The current location of the 4-inch pipe is in the house closest to where Johnson Street crosses the railroad tracks. The best location for it is 2 more houses up from that, which would allow all 3 backyards to drain very well. So the first part of this is to engage those residents, see if easements can be had along those properties so that we can put the pipe at its best place.
Get them for $1? Or?
You have a great attorney, so I'm guessing you can get them for free.
I mean, when they put when we got the sewer on the Lower Lake Road, there was no negotiating it. I mean, you didn't get the grinder pump if you didn't do the easement for $1.
I think this will be a significant improvement to each of the properties that affects, and so we should be able to have reasonable negotiations with the homeowners.
I mean, and is it possible to do multiple smaller drainage pipes, say on the other side into a 36-inch or whatever?
I think it is possible, yes.
Because boring certainly would be a lot less for a smaller pipe.
There's no question about that, so that could be something that could be considered.
Okay. But that's part of your design, right?
Right, in the design, we're going to take a look at that and really try and figure out what's the best solution, considering what easements we can get and what locations we can work in.
Okay, Tim, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Okay, the comprehensive plan continues to be developed, and the the steering committee continues to meet on a regular basis. We're hoping to have something for board approval in October, or maybe September, but probably most likely October. So hopefully we'll have something that you can wrap your hands around and go from there. Just so everyone knows, the steering committee is represented by the Cuba Nation. They will be included in the comprehensive plan as the nation is legally recognized as having a reservation. It includes Cuba and Seneca counties, and Clint Halftown is the recognized nation leader of that
They don't
chief.
have a reservation in this.
Well, I'm not going to go into that history lesson, but the bottom line is that they're represented on the steering committee.
That's fine, but, I mean, to say that they have a reservation is a false statement, not a fact. They have applications for a reservation, which they've had for about 30 years, but for 7 acres, but they do not have a reservation in this town.
So with that, we'll be moving forward.
Will there be another public hearing prior to, you're saying October, we're gonna move on it.
Well, no, there's going to be,
There's gonna be additional public hearings.
public hearing, there'll be comment period, there'll be plenty of time for everybody to review it and before it's adopted. Okay.
Old business?
No, we're a lot of catching up, Steve. I'm sorry. You're going to be here a while tonight. I'm sorry. Chief Snyder wanted me to read this letter. I'm writing this letter to express my appreciation to the men and women who participated in the search and rescue for the missing elderly woman on July 21st, 2023. The disappearance of the elderly woman was a distressing situation for her family and the entire community. As first responders, we are often faced with challenging and demanding situations, and the search for the missing person can be emotionally and physically draining. However, on July 21st and on July 22nd, the professionalism, expertise, and compassion were evident throughout the entire search for a missing elderly woman here in Seneca Falls. I'm asking that Supervisor Farrar and the Seneca Falls Town Board members acknowledge and thank the following departments for assisting the town: Seneca Falls Police Department, Seneca Falls Police, Seneca Falls Fire, New York State Police, Seneca County Sheriff's Office, New York State DEC and Forest Rangers, Monroe County's Sheriff's Office, Wayne County Sheriff's Office, LifeNet, North Seneca Ambulance, Northeast College Security, Fayette Fire Department, Troop Fire Department, and all the volunteers from the community. So, Town Clerk Greer, please acknowledge that in our minutes. Thank you. Okay, we are continuing with the auditor's report and making the necessary updates based on the recommendations from the auditor's February report. I'll have a detailed report for you that tells you exactly where we are, but we're pretty much close to filling out and completing all of those recommendations. I made a mistake a couple months ago, and I said that when we mow people's lawns that are delinquent, it gets put on their taxes. That's not true. The county won't let us do that anymore. So when we go out and mow people's lawns that are delinquent, we're not getting compensated for that. So a couple of months ago, again, with the departments collaborating between Parks and Recreation, Highway, Parks and Recreation, Peter Pacelli, and others, we're mowing the lawns ourselves, okay? And we're not paying some outside agency to pay to mow the lawns. So we're doing it within our time period. We're not doing it with overtime or anything like that, but the job is getting done with a lot of collaboration.
Are we keeping track of that cost?
We are.
So where does it get added to the,
I'm sorry?
where does it get added to the homeowners?
So
It doesn't, so they don't have any idea.
You got a fine line, so it doesn't,
They get
we bill them, but most of the time they don't pay. You got a fine line, you know. Do you let the place look like destruction and neighbors are upset, rightly so, or we try to get the job done?
Because and I talked with Peter, because I did get some calls in reference to, the zoning officer, because it is something different and new. in reference to seeing the zoning officer, because we do have two zoning. So if you could just explain a little bit about, because there's is it a $75 fee? 'Cause the intent is good behind it, but as far as some of the complaints were, why do we have two zoning officers? One is mowing, what's the initiative behind it, that sort of stuff. So it's just important for our community to
Absolutely.
understand the purpose of it.
Peter, and I want to thank Peter and Aaron Pasalacqua, they came to me and said, Mike, there's a lot of vacant properties around town that are getting no attention. Overgrowth of bushes and et cetera, and all over the place. We can't track down who owns the house, or we know who owns the house, but we can't make contact with them. You know, they said Peter said if I had some extra time during the afternoon or late morning, if permits are slow and I don't have meetings with contractors, he wouldn't mind going out and start cleaning these up. And Aaron has helped them on a couple of them. And again, it's just a matter when, instead of sitting idly when you got a low time, I appreciate the fact that he's willing to step up and help out and do above and down with some other people, you know, that might just sit there in their office and play on the computer. So I appreciate that, and I think that's the only history of it. That's all.
But you're
Really-
sending out the $75 fees to the owners of,
Correct.
okay,
Everybody's billed.
Yeah.
everyone's billed.
Yeah.
Okay, and I just want that emphasized,
Yeah.
that everyone is billed.
Yep. They get billed, whether they pay it or not, that's a different story.
I have a spreadsheet in my office with everybody that's billed, who's paid, who hasn't, copy of the violation, the bill, an email when the lawn gets mowed. So if anybody wants to see any of that, I'm more than welcome to.
Okay.
We're doing that.
This, Peter and myself have been looking at some of our reserves and some of our accounts and so forth. So we've started to move some money into higher interest accounts. It doesn't restrict the money. It's still there to use when needed, exceptly. But in our early calculations, we're probably going to be generating about $250,000 in interest that we normally would not generate. And that's just scratching the surface. We got a lot more work to do that we're working on, but we're finding the most appropriate, safest. These are not high-risk types of things. These are all guaranteed federal insurance. We're working with the bank, but just on the ones we've done already, we're projecting about a $250,000 windfall for the taxpayers of Seneca Falls. So I want to thank Peter for that, with helping me out. We have three major problems downtown. Give Steve one of those, please. Peter, can you pass those down? So Kim Rose and Jeremy have been doing some inspecting downtown. We have three major trees that have buckled the sidewalk. And as you can see, Kim provided some pictures here for you and giving you the address. One is 116 Fall, one is Dewar Nationwide Insurance Company, one in front of 28. I'd like your permission to cut the trees down and repair the work. We are looking at a serious safety issue here. As you can see from the pictures, the sidewalks have upheaved and somebody's going to get hurt real quick. I don't know what it would cost, but if I have your permission to look into it and start to get the problem fixed, as soon as I have a cost, I'll let you know about cutting the trees down and replacing the sidewalks.
I make the motion to get the quote.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Welcome, discussion here.
Sure, I'm sorry, open for discussion, I'm sorry.
You know, I hate to cut trees down because very
I know.
seldom do they get replaced.
But unfortunately, whoever was the architect on these jobs, these trees are 40 feet high.
Right, but I know that there is ways to adjust sidewalks, right? I mean, you know, they can inject foam underneath them and raise them and level them, and they can do all kinds of magic things here. I just think maybe we should have somebody we took the pictures, it's definitely a problem, I agree with it, and it needs to be remedied, but I just think going in with a chainsaw might be just overreacting before seeing if we have some other options.
I'm sorry, what would you suggest then? Who do I don't know who to contact.
I'm not, off the top of my head, can't tell you, but there may be some folks that can help us out without having to take the trees down. That's all I'm saying. They might have some suggestions. I'm sure other municipalities have dealt with these issues. That's all I'm suggesting.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad suggestion, I just don't know who to contact.
I mean, like right
I don't
here.
have to look up in the yellow pages, I don't know
Right
what I'm
here,
looking for.
if they were to jack up this piece of concrete to level those, boom, that problem goes away. The same thing on this side, this one piece of concrete here, looks like if you brought it up, you get rid, I don't know that would work, but, or what it would cost. But just to tonight decide, based on a few pictures, let's cut the trees down, I'm not in favor of that.
Well, we didn't
I'd like to
decide to
take a
cut
little time.
trees down, we were just getting a quote to see what it would cost to cut them.
No, the motion was to cut them down.
No, it's to get a quote.
It's for a quote.
Well, to cut them down, we have somebody.
Well,
that-
we can, I mean, I'm not opposed
We
to it,
already
we
have
can,
somebody-
we can,
At the beginning of the year, we have a person that cuts trees down for the town.
Lumberjack, yeah.
So we already got that person online. All we gotta do is tell them, we pull the trigger, they take the tree down.
Well, you
we can
still
modify
gotta
it
know,
to
he doesn't do
figure
it
out
for free.
quote.
Right.
And so I think I gotta ask him how much it
Options,
would
I'm not
cost,
opposed to
and then
it.
I can reach out to somebody who may know something about leveling concrete, you know, I don't know.
They do that all the time, I mean, around
I'm not
pools.
opposed to that, Stephen, we can certainly modify.
I know,
Well, why
we
don't
have,
we do that first?
I'll check it out, okay? And again, the motion was to get estimates on the repair, and one of the possible options would be not to cut the trees and repair the sidewalk.
Yes.
I don't think that's gonna solve the problem though, because the trees are still gonna be there.
Yeah, but you can clearly see that, I mean, this has been a problem with the wear on that sidewalk, that edge of that sidewalk, this has been a problem for a long time. It didn't happen overnight, right? And, yeah, they may level it, and it may take another 10 years when you've got a similar problem, but I think we should. That's just my.
Well, unfortunately, if I was king for the day, I'd cut all those trees down in Fall Street because they're the wrong trees for that environment, you know? They're way too big. As I said, I'm sitting there looking at the Go Hotel, the one in front of the Go Hotel is all the way to the roof of the Go Hotel. It's 40 feet. They're supposed to be small dwarf trees that don't grow. Anyway. Okay, I'll get some prices, I'll keep you informed.
Mike, included in that is the tree at, closest to the corner at 106 Fall Street, is that included?
Kim?
By Brad's, by the cafe?
No,
No,
10
116, 10
Not here.
State.
28
Oh, you're talking about
State.
the,
106.
I know what property you're talking about, yeah.
It's 106.
Fall Street Brewery.
That's by the Fall Street Brewery. That's also, that particular tree and brickwork and sidewalk being not leveled is the subject of a notice of claim that was served on the town within the last couple weeks.
Well, I thought it was.
Because somebody actually did fall and actually did get
Right, but
injured.
my understanding is they tripped on their cellar entrance door,
Well,
because one of them was up about an inch.
Well, and the bricks are uneven and the cement
Right,
is
but
uneven.
their suit was, right, for the cellar doors.
I mean, that's all part of it, but that's all.
Well, they didn't
that's all
trip
there.
on all of it, they only tripped on something, and my understanding was the doors.
I wasn't there.
Well, you didn't read the complaint or the
No,
letter?
I did, but there's about a 6-inch piece of concrete next to the door.
Not arguing
between
that.
and the tree.
I'm just saying that suit was because they tripped on the doors.
Okay. There's an area in town,
There's probably
for
lots of.
some reason, somebody was injured. If you're looking at trees, if you're looking at sidewalks and bricks, I would suggest you include that in it as well.
Okay. Kim, can you take a look at that for me tomorrow, please? Thank you.
Moving.
Okay, this will be a quick one, but I got to do due diligence, it's my job.
what, did we vote?
I thought we voted no? No, I'm sorry. All in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Aye, anybody opposed? So carried, beginning cost estimates. Okay?
Get the cost estimate.
4 to 1. 4 to 1.
And ideas, I mean, you can ask.
You voted no?
I
Yeah.
voted no.
I
Okay,
thought
4-1.
I thought we're getting ideas for both options. Or we
Yeah,
gonna
we
modify
have two
the,
engineering firms, maybe they know about
Yeah.
lifting the
You're
sidewalk.
opposed to
with
that,
foam. I've never
Steve?
even heard of it, but.
Well, they do it around swimming pools all the time.
Well,
That's
it's
a big- they
roots,
do
the
steps.
roots is the problem with the trees, it's not just uneven ground, it's the roots of the trees coming out through the sidewalk.
Steve,
Correct.
you're opposed to we're modifying,
Well, I mean, I understood his motion
But
to
we're-
get it cut down, cut down the tree, so just,
no, but we're modifying it to appease you and you're still opposing it? I'm
doesn't hurt,
confused.
pass,
Whatever.
just pass.
Okay, whatever. I don't understand you sometimes.
I've been approached by
I've never even seen that.
a sign company that, I think we mentioned this before, at our Kingdom Road pump station. They were looking to rent some space for a digital sign. Nothing of that came about because
They're too close.
a new digital sign was going up at the liquor store, and there's a zoning law that they have to be 500 feet apart. Certainly the town would have the authority to supersede that zoning law. I'm just doing due diligence, okay? They would pay $7,000 a year for rental fees. They would provide as a host agreement to provide a digital sign for the town of Seneca Falls in front of 130 Ovid Street. And they would provide 600 minutes a week for town advertising for events or whatever it may be, okay? Their sign would be catching people coming from the west going east into Seneca Falls, where the other sign is set up the other way. And their sign would be a picture I showed you. This is from Park Outdoor Signage. Their sign would be they call it a mausoleum, I don't know, I think I got the term, but obviously a very professional, very nice looking sign. Thoughts on this?
Where is it located? What's that building?
No, that's
across
just a picture, that's a picture of the sign, forget the location.
Oh.
They want,
That picture is in, I believe that picture is in the town of
No.
Southern Tier. Watkins Glen or one, I can't remember.
they want to put it across the street from Kitty's, just like the other.
So we'd have two back to back?
Pardon?
We'd have two back to back?
Essentially.
Correct,
So they get you coming and going.
correct.
Oh, so it'd be right behind the other sign?
Yes.
Do you know the Kingdom Road pump station?
Yeah.
The one we're going to eventually?
Right. Where they were
Right there.
fixed, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they would be very close to each other.
So
Yeah,
500 feet
I'm
apart
not
from each other.
in favor.
Pardon?
500 feet apart from each other, right?
No,
Essentially.
No, they would not be 500 feet apart.
He's asking us to circumvent.
There's not enough room to do that. They wouldn't be not 500 feet apart.
Oh, no.
So we would be, I can let the attorney, we can supersede an ordinance, I think. Yeah.
Ultimately, so they do not comply with the zoning because it would be too close. So zoning for signs like this requires them to be spread out. They would need a variance in order to do that. The town would be part of that application as the landowner. However, the question that's before the board now is, does the board even want to entertain this?
So does the board, the town board want to go in front of the zoning board?
Right.
That's what it means.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Two signs back to back, that would be terrible.
two different designs, I'm not in
Yeah,
favor of it.
no, me either.
No problem. I'm just doing due diligence, brought it up. Steve, I'm still the same way, right? About the sign?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, doing my due diligence, okay? I mentioned to you a couple of meetings ago that the Ludovico Trail folks have reached out to me and we're looking for some in-kind services with the Ludovico Trail for the maintenance of it and removing some trees and brush, et cetera, et cetera. I met with Liz Rossetti, who is I don't know,
Daughter.
I know, but what's her official
chair of the board.
She's in charge of the, I mean,
Yeah,
she's in
she's-
charge of the committee or the volunteer. Yeah. So Liz and I walked the trail with Jeremy went, and then Jeremy got back to me and he would say, look at what they want to get done. It would probably be about 2 weeks for one person to do it. And from the highway department, we have the equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm bringing that to you now that I know exactly what's required, okay? And, you know, I know some of you have some very strong feelings about this, and I understand completely. I'm in the position where myself personally, I'm not telling anybody what to do. I never liked the idea that the Ludoviko Trail stopped us, I think as Frank said in an email, but with the whole thing, that's water under the bridge. I think the Ludoviko Trail is an integral part of our community. I think a lot of people go there, and I think it's potentially going to be something that will be part of a bigger project, hopefully, with our local water revitalization grant, connecting the trail to Waterloo and connecting the trail to behind the hall over Elizabeth Cady Stanton Home. So it's an integral part, but again, I understand how people feel. But I need your permission to do that if we're going to provide some in-kind services to the trail.
I support it, and it's not a precedent. I mean, the town has historically done this. I know Don Wood, when he was highway superintendent, they did quite a bit of maintenance down there, you know, when it needed it, and they had some free time to do it. I haven't had a chance to talk to Jim Peterson to find out he was doing it, but it's nothing new, and I wholly support it because it is something that the town uses. The people take pleasure in having, and I'd hate to see it just go to hell. And so if we can do a little bit to help out, I think we should.
Do we have the staff to help out? I mean, aren't we down staff right now? I mean, not that I'm opposed to helping, but aren't we down staff? I mean, and then we're also leaning on other departments to help out as well. Because we didn't do this with Jim Peterson, so.
Well, there is a resolution to put a labor in the highway department, so then he'll only be 2 people now.
And I would only do it if we have the time to do it.
Right.
If there's some between seasons, if
they're
time
down,
when
then
they can do
they
that.
can help. If they're not, then they can't.
I'm sorry.
If they don't have anything to do, there's no reason why they can't help, but if they're busy, then they're not gonna be able to do it.
It's, you know, I
So it
think,
wouldn't be set in stone that they were gonna do it.
right. Jeremy got sick tonight, that's why he's not here. I know, I can't remember exactly sometime in the next couple of weeks, they're gonna start Peter, the paving part of it, the roads that we're doing?
The end of August, the end of this month, the second half of the month.
Okay. So that's gonna be starting too, which their whole crew is being tied up there. Okay. So, without any objections, Frank?
I'm
You're good? If we got time, we can do what we can do if we got time.
You can do a resolution, I can vote. Somebody can bring up a resolution, then we can vote.
Okay. So if this would ultimately be some type of contribution in the form of in-kind services from the town to this private, albeit not-for-profit group, this should be the subject, there should be a written agreement to memorialize why, what benefit is coming to the town in exchange for the work and services being performed specifically on this private property.
So, because the in-kind part of that implies that we get benefit too, so why don't I draft some contract language that could be addressed at the next board meeting?
There you go.
Yeah, this is not.
Our auditors would be happy with too.
And Pete, can you put in there that, it's not set in stone, that if
It'll
the
be
guys
done
have time,
when
they'll do it?
available,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get some language, I'll get it to you before the meeting so you can see it, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I bet 5 times as many people walk on the Lower Lake Road every day than walk on that trail, maybe 10 times. Why don't we fix the Lower Lake Road too?
They're all living in short-term rentals too, right?
Well,
They all walk too,
The
believe me.
county owns that road.
Yes.
I know it does.
if you monitor the Lower Lake Road, then you can't be monitoring another vehicle trail at the same time, so you really don't know. You just live on Lower Lake.
When I went up the rec center, I looked out the window.
Got it, bro.
Okay, so
I-
we won't have to take a vote.
Could I-
You're gonna put together some language and we can go from there.
Could I ask a question? When you introduced this, didn't you say that it was going to take 2 days? It sounded to me like the situation was a tree needed to come down. That isn't what we're talking about.
He said 2 weeks.
It'll take
Two
2 weeks
man
worth of work.
weeks of labor.
But before that, at the very beginning, didn't you say there was a particular problem that had to be addressed?
No,
That was
No.
the
that was on
sidewalks.
Fall Street.
No, I understand
Okay.
that, but,
No, these are just some trees would come down.
okay,
And some brush cutting and stuff like that, okay? Nothing that needs a, it's something that's gonna have to wait until September if we can go forward.
the reason I ask is that I know that Liz has very big concern about some trees that are dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's why I am asking.
And I think some of them are actually in the town's right of way, like we actually own them anyways, so.
I think
Okay.
it's worth double checking with her to exactly what the situation is, because I think she's quite worried about somebody being
Jeremy knows
hurt.
firsthand as well, and I have
Yep,
Liz's
I
phone
spoke
number.
to him. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, last but not least, just want to let people know the reeval that was done, Debbie got some information today. So the level for our senior citizens' property ownership will go up to $94,120 for the coming year, 2024, okay? Without the reeval, that would have been $81,000. So this is going to provide more opportunity for our senior citizens to get the STAR exemption for senior citizens.
Enhanced star.
Then the other one is, again, for just the basic STAR enhancement, that level's raised to $34,900, where without the reeval it would have been at $30,000. So again, that's just for the basic the reeval has been something that people have talked about, but again, I think if people keep in mind that the whole idea was now that all people and businesses are paying their fair share. People that bought homes 5, 4, 3, 2 years ago were buying homes for $500,000 and the property was assessed for $150,000, and you and I were picking up the tab because we were paying more taxes, okay? And I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised in September when they get their school taxes. I could be wrong, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. It's been a busy month. Okay, we need to proceed. I need to have a motion to adopt the regular monthly meeting minutes of July 5th.
I make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Carried. I need a motion to approve the special minutes of the July 11th special meeting.
I'll make a motion we approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Communications are in your packet. Any questions on that? Board reports were handed out by all of our department people, MRB and B&L. Any questions for MRB? Emily's here representing MRB. Raise your hand so they know who you are. Don't be bashful. Any questions for Lisa?
And Emily, you're usually the person that comes for bid openings, right? Am I right?
No.
Engineers.
You're talking to
Engineers.
me now.
Oh, the engineer. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, well,
So Lori Fox is our lead grant writer, okay, now. Emily works with Lori. Emily takes on some of the other, they're working collaboratively. on any of
Emily's
the grants.
actually a community planner who's the lead person for our comprehensive plan. She's doing a fantastic job.
Okay, no questions, fine. Old business, that's still on the agenda because we still have to make some decisions. New business,
I got something under old business.
yes,
Railroad sewer,
I'm sorry,
railroad sewer,
yes.
and your conversation with the entire town supervisor.
So, we met, and she was going back to her board. She doesn't think it's a viable project on her end because that part of Tyre does not have a lot of population, and it's very well, the ones that are there are very well dispersed, and she did not think that it would be something that they would be looking to do, but she did not get back to me as far as what their town board had decided, whether to continue exploring the possibility or not. Okay? And I did talk to, I think Pete sent you an email, I sent you an email. I did talk to former Mayor Diana Smith about the going-ons at State in Fall Street as well as Ovid and Barrett Street. She said that was never an issue when she was mayor. Peter and myself called the senior engineer from Department of Transportation today from my office. His name is Scott Butler, and it was a very interesting conversation. He didn't have any clue what was going on in Seneca Falls, even though he's the senior engineer for this region. I would have thought that he would have been able to get on his computer and type up Seneca Falls and some projects would show up. And then he assured me that he would get back to me before my meeting tonight, so I could report to the public what was going on. And I can assure you, he did not get back to me.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that, I think everybody in Seneca Falls has kind of noticed how this construction company works. My understanding is, there's step A, they're doing work, say, in 10 towns. So step A is dig a hole. They go to town 1, dig a hole, town 2, dig a hole. When they get done with town 10, they go to step B, make the hole bigger. They go to town. That's the way they're doing this project. And I absolutely cannot believe that anybody would think that that's an efficient way, because that's what's leaving that mess all tore up for the entire summer
and spring.
And no signs of it being done anytime soon. That's why.
You're right, and not even a heads up saying, what's going on. I made it perfectly clear to him that any future projects, we need to know about it. We need to know about it. You don't even tell us. I mean, at least you have the common courtesy, say, hey, we're gonna do some street lights changing and this or that and the other thing.
And I do recall, vaguely, but it was 20, 30 years ago, when they put in some industrial poles on that intersection downtown, the Gould Hotel, State Street, Fall Street, and they were just butt ugly. They were the wrong look for the town, which had its relatively new lighting at that time, and it just didn't fit. And there was an uproar of some form, and I don't know where it came from. I'm surprised Diana Smith, maybe she wasn't the mayor at that time, but the state did come back in, DOT came back in and put in the more ornate black wrought iron traffic signal poles and such that we have today. But to me, it looks like they're getting ready to put in industrial strength ones again, and it's just not going to fit. So if we can get out in front of this, I think it'd be to our benefit. Thank you for checking.
Sheila, I completely ignored you. I'm sorry. Did you have a...
Oh, that was earlier. I was just going to suggest, if the town is doing maintenance on the Little Depot Trail, is that going to open us up to any liability on that trail? That's why we pay this guy the high low.
Most likely not. That's part of the reason for the agreement, as well as anytime the town is spending money on private property, there needs to be a reason for it. There needs to be some benefit to the town as well. Yeah.
These are number 3. Certainly wasn't right.
So you want me to skip over that?
We can skip over that and do that at the end, or we could, do you want to plow through, or?
No.
Anybody needs to have-
No, I'd rather skip over. Okay, approval of special events. Nikki, we don't have any, right?
Yes, yeah, we have
One.
Taste and Tunes.
I thought we approved Taste and Tunes last month, you told me.
No, we didn't.
Okay. Okay, that's the only one?
That's the only one.
Okay, very good.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's on a Thursday. I'll be golfing. Am I gonna miss it?
Okay, Ben, I'm gonna need some help here, but anyway, Part B, proposed improvements of Seneca Falls Water Treatment Plant and Distribution Center. We have a resolution here for Town Law 202B order, okay? Order after public hearing authorizing an increase in improvement of facilities of the Town of Seneca Falls Water Treatment Plant and Distribution System under Town Law 202B.
So this was the subject of the first public hearing this evening. This is the order that authorizes the increase in the facilities of the water districts. That is the subject of the project and the bond resolution that comes next.
I can read the whole resolution, or I'll entertain a motion to enter into the resolution, then we can have a point of discussion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Ultimately, the finding of the subject of the order is the proposed project, which would be $17,700,000. And the finding of this order comes in the, at the end, that therefore, stating that the construction of the improvements here and above described is in the public interest. That's the main thrust of the whole thing. So if you believe it's in the public interest, you should move forward. If not,
So
then
I think that the biggest question that Steve had, and are there other areas that would provide just as many points aside from Route 414?
Yeah, so the Route 414 extension provides service to what is a public water system.
Right.
That is the only location that we can get to at that, in that portion to get those 25 points. We're getting other points for bringing water to private wells down on Martin Road right now. So we're already getting those points. So the reason we want to, we basically want to, oh, thank you.
Yep.
So this is one part of a larger systems initiative, and we need to make sure that we're reserving other distribution or water treatment improvements for subsequent projects so that we can maximize those points for those future projects as well, ultimately working to achieve maximizing the funding opportunities for those projects in the future.
I understand.
All right, so you said that's water distribution to a public facility, but it's a private facility owned by Seneca Meadows.
It is classified as a public water system, so I sent the ID listing as well.
But it's a private, it's not a public building, it's not,
Well, it is classified as a public water system.
well, then it's probably wrongly classified. You're gonna run a 12-inch main out to a facility, there's nothing else between where you're gonna run it and that, what is about a half mile out. But you do have to go under quite a bit of gas line infrastructure out there. You're gonna run it out there so that that one facility can run their drinking fountain and flush their toilet. 12-inch main we're talking about. Now, the cost of running that 12-inch main is one issue. The cost of flushing that 12-inch main, quite frequently, because the water is not going to be flowing, it's going to be stagnant from point A to point B, because there's nothing else drawing on it. And that's going to cost, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of gallons of water sitting in a pipe that have to be flushed out quite frequently, because first of all, the environmental center isn't used that often. It doesn't appear to be used very often, the vehicles out there. So I have no idea why you're running this bridge to nowhere. And I get it for the points, but like I say, that's a private facility, so it's wrongly classified. It's not owned by any public municipality, or it's a public-private facility. So that's wrongly classified. Second, I heard after the last meeting that, well, maybe it's, we want to really run an extension out the Warden Road, another mile, for an interconnect.
Correct.
Where you can run about 300 yards, maybe a little farther, maybe about 800, about 300 yards, between the end of Blackbrook Road water, which is at the entire town line. Literally, you could almost throw a baseball to Warden Road. You could put an interconnect there. But I checked with Waterloo, and I talked to Joe Tullo, and there's no need for an interconnect. The need was 8 years ago when they were doing maintenance on the tower, and they needed on Auburn Road, and they needed to take the tower offline. So there's no pressure in the north side of the village. So they put some, rather than put in the interconnect, which they were in the process of doing, but they realized there really wouldn't be enough pressure from Waterloo. They put in some surface pumps, very similar to the one we have up on 5 and 20 near the Kinney's, that big orange pump. They put it on Troy Street in somebody's yard, and that's what gave added pressure to the system on the north side. That project has since been done. They don't need the interconnect. Waterloo has changed a lot of their infrastructure on the north side tire, and they have no need for it. As a matter of fact, Jim Bromka, their manager of their water department, said that if they were to put in an interconnect, the most logical place would be to put one in right at where they just cleaned that swale out of Quality Inn. We have a main right there, over to a Waterloo water by the county office. And that dig would be through grass. I think it has to go under, or through one piece of pavement, but it's just going across primarily county-owned property. So it would be a chip shot if it really is for another interconnect. But nobody needs an interconnect 2 miles north of this village. None of the other water operators that I've talked to, I asked Joe Tullo if this was his idea to run it out to the environmental center, and he said no, he didn't have any idea of it. So it's all about getting those points. Now, it would be very easy for us to run water on King Road, which people, they're less than a mile from the landfill, and these folks are drawing their water from the well. I mean, does anybody else see that as a potential problem? I'm surprised that they don't already have water. I'm surprised that they weren't first on the list. But those folks need water. George Road needs water. Hyatt Road needs water. So that's what we should be concentrating. George Road, I said, those are the areas that we need to be concentrating on. We should have summed them up this past month. I suggested it several weeks ago, and I don't know what points that get, but there is no way in hell I'm supporting this thing running a 12-inch main at some huge cost. And even if it's there to help us get a grant, what good is it if we get the grant, but yet we got to spend a couple $1 million to run this? It's a total waste of taxpayers' money.
Did Joe call you from his vacation?
What's that?
Did Joe call you from his vacation today in response to my email?
Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on vacation.
Yeah, I know. Did he call you? Because I sent that email.
Yeah, I've talked to him.
Today?
I talked to him today.
He was on vacation?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's meeting actually with Jim Bromka tomorrow to look at this potential interconnect right there between Quality Inn and the county office.
We met 3 months ago with Jim Bromka.
I was aware of that meeting.
Don Northrop. I forgot who else from Waterloo.
Hold on one second
Yep.
before you interrupt me. So why couldn't Joe respond to the email if I had questions?
I can't answer for Joe.
Why, well, he answered to you, so why
I
couldn't
called
he
him.
answer to everybody?
I called him.
You called him?
I called him.
So why couldn't you respond to everybody?
I am. I'm telling you.
No, but you're announcing it to everybody here.
I called
Why
him today on
couldn't you-
vacation and
Well,
asked
why
him.
couldn't you knew he was on vacation, but why couldn't you respond and reply to everybody so we could all be prepared?
I'm
For
telling
the
you
meeting.
tonight what I heard.
No, you're
what I-
talking to her. No, I'm just asking because we're board members and you always discuss how we should always be prepared as a
Not
team.
going there, Caitlin.
You're not?
You're hearing it tonight. I talked to Joe today. I'm telling you what he said. I apologize. Got a lot of things going on. It's extremely
I have a
busy.
lot of things going on too,
That's fine.
Steve.
You know, I didn't get an email out to you guys, and I apologize. Didn't I just apologize? You want me to write you one now?
I do, actually.
Oh,
Can you summarize all of it for me?
Guys,
I can't speak for Joe Tulo. Joe
Steve,
Tulo,
Steve,
I
Caitlin,
wish he was here
let's
today.
move on, okay? Let's move on, please.
Have Joe email me.
No, you reach out to Joe.
I already
I am
have,
not
he
Joe-
doesn't respond. Jeremy too.
I-
Let's know
Joe's
more
key.
about these,
Not Joe's key.
I will-
committees,
I will.
since I don't get reports either. There's a new one.
You sent a report. I see.
I
You
don't-
didn't get the report?
I don't know what you're talking about, Caitlin, I don't know.
You do know what I'm talking about. I didn't
About
get
the
report.
highway?
Yeah.
I don't know
I
why.
know, 'cause I had
I
to
sent
get
you one
forward.
today, didn't I?
I
I sent you the report, didn't I?
Yes, your confidential secretary sent it to me.
Yeah.
Why wasn't I in the original one?
I don't know.
Okay, we don't know. Anyways, let's move forward.
Finally, one last thing I'd like to say is the county is aggressively, I hope, looking at a water authority for Seneca County. What's a water authority? That is an entity that essentially would take control over all the water and sewer assets in Seneca County and manage them, to hopefully the betterment of all of us in the county. The MRB, I think, told the county that, look, you're behind the 8 ball now, and if you want to be a player in the game going forward for grants and such, you've got to get a water authority put in place. So that's coming. So a lot of these $100 million projects to upgrade our plant, perhaps the water, we should leave that for the water authority to deal with. They may have much more power to get their hands on some of the big dollars. That's kind of what the engineers are conveying. So, you know, I want to be, look, I was elected to be, I think, frugal with the taxpayers' money. And running this out to that, running a 12-inch main out to a facility so that they can, once a week, use their drinking fountain and flush a couple toilets, that's crazy. That is a waste of taxpayers.
Kyle, how often do you guys use the education center? You're here, you're presenting the Meadows. Can you answer that question,
In the
please?
summertime, it's used weekly. There's an educator in there, there's programs. The community's open to use it anytime they need it. It is a community asset. So
How frequently do you guys get visitors?
again, it depends on tourism season and around the time that if we're doing programs and things like that, we advertise in our mailers and all that stuff. So the facility does get used. I mean, the other thing I
It's
would
not
point
open
out.
every day to the public, correct?
No.
Again, I don't,
It's not
I just want to
open.
say that
Private
the
facility.
intent was never to accommodate this educational center.
Correct.
It was only intended to include it in the grant application to score more points. We applied for a WE grant last year and we did not get it, okay?
We
So-
would tie into water at other facilities, as I'm sure other businesses would along 414
Yes.
up through there.
There's no other, I've gone out there, there's nothing between where the water ends today and the environmental center. There's nothing there.
Well, the RP park is there, that if that ever develops would be potentially a major attraction that could use
It's going to
water.
become a major industrial environmental pathway.
There's a
Between-
gas interconnect there that takes up, you know, half an acre of property.
The
or
main
whatever.
point of the project would be what the River Road area, as I pointed out in my email to everybody, correct?
Yes.
Which is most important,
Yeah.
even though Joe Tulo apparently doesn't feel such. Right. However, that is the main part, and talking to Leeson, part of the project.
Correct, and
Thank
a
you.
large portion of the project is the treatment improvements.
It's the water
That's
treatment plant.
critical for this skill
Okay.
set.
All right.
The water treatment plant itself.
The
And I
treatment
support all
itself,
those, I support all those other
Wonderful.
components. I
All right.
support the interconnect between River Road and 5 and 20. Yep, absolutely makes sense. I support the upgrades we want to do to the water plant. I do not support this pipe to nowhere, this 12-inch main that we're gonna be flushing all the time. Even if they were running that facility all the time, flushing toilets and running the drinking fountains, they would not use that water that's sitting in a 12-inch pipe, a half-mile long. So it would have to be flushed. You send a crew out there, you open up the fire hydrant, you let it go for a few hours to get all the water out. That's what we want to do? That's the way you want to spend the taxpayers' money?
That might be a very short-term thing that would have to be done. But again, if we're looking at trying to spur economic development in that area and trying to connect with...
You're on the landfill's 2,600 acre industrial complex. What's going to build, who's going there? Who's going to go there? You tell me, what's going to go there?
North, in between 318 and...
Not 318 and, I'm talking between, I'm talking about the environmental center.
Why don't we talk about the potential for what it's going to do for the business areas for River, because that's really the core concept here of why we're doing this project, right? I mean, that's the meat of it. I mean, I know you're really focused here just because of the landfill, but...
No, I'm focused on
yes,
that pipeline is servicing one facility.
That's perfectly fine. I understand that landfill's a hot topic for you.
Oh.
I get that, Steve. We
It's
all
servicing
understand
one
that.
facility.
And I told you before in the email, if there was another opportunity to get the same points in another area, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't care. But if this obviously is important for the River Road area, then I'm gonna go for it. I mean,
Spend the taxpayer money, go ahead.
whatever.
Lisa, can we get points by running water down these other 4 roads that need water?
At this point, we already are receiving those points for the extension down on Martin Road. Therefore, these points we want to save so that in these subsequent projects that I detailed in my memo, King Road and George Road are 2 of those that are slated for this next 2025 water system improvements project, so we can get those 40 points now. If we include it now, we've already maximized those 40 points by putting water on Martin Road. So we aren't going to be getting any more points by bringing water on King and George Road this time around. We need to distribute that to future projects so that we can maximize those points.
So we're going to make up a phony project, essentially, because it's not going to service anything, right? We're all in agreement there. Number one, they do have well water out there to flush the toilets. I don't know what they do for drinking water. But
we have bottled water.
We have bottled water.
It's an opportunity to score more points.
Right, that's the only reason we're doing it.
After we lost the WE application last year, the team got together and decided this was the best avenue to go, is to break it up into phases, which we did, and to include distribution, okay? And by including distribution, you might be giving something up, but the major focus, as Caitlin said, is making water improvements in a 1940s water treatment plant to maintain safety of our drinking water. That's the major focus, okay? It's $5 million. I think that's a lot of money of taxpayers' money. And remember, the other key component of this is that the 0% financing, that's why we passed in a bond resolution.
But where do we get 0% financing? Who lends this town, which is not rated by any measure, money for 0%? Who does that?
EFC.
EFC.
There's state and federal programs that are funneled through the EFC.
So it's subsidized by some other entity.
Yeah. Yeah. Based on our income, based on a lot of factors, the equalization tank being started, that project down at the wastewater treatment plant, 0% financing. Okay, 0. So we can get the most out of our dollars with projects like this without vigorously spending taxpayers' money.
Well, you still, even at 0%, you have to pay those loans back.
Absolutely.
That's taxpayer
Absolutely.
dollars. Those
No,
are
not
taxpayer
necessarily.
dollars.
Not necessarily. So as you'll see unfold in the next couple of months, reserve funds that we have established, and we're going to keep establishing, that money would come out of the reserve fund. It would not be part of the levy for taxes.
and that's fine, but we have so many infrastructure projects that we need to be working on that
Right.
we do not need to run a 12-inch main a half a mile
Okay.
out to a drinking
All
fountain.
right, I'm going to end the discussion. Any other further discussion? Okay, it's time to vote, folks. So all in favor of the resolution, order off for public hearing authorization increase. Now therefore, upon the evidence given at the public hearing, described and is hereby determined as follows. By order of the town board of the town of Seneca Falls, this order shall take effect immediately. Any further discussion? All in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay.
Opposed?
That's carried 4-1. Along with that,
And let me just say something now that we've passed it. It's only a chance. It's like putting a chip on a roulette table. We don't know if we're gonna get this grant for sure.
Correct.
We're just applying for money.
Correct.
That's what this is.
If we don't get it, we don't do it.
Right. If we don't get it, we've gotta go through this whole process next year.
correct.
Maybe, you know,
And just remember though, but if we do get it, you gotta go ahead and, you don't wanna get the grant and say, no, bad,
I'm
you
just
change your
saying,
mind.
if
you
we
know?
get it, we get it, but what
Yeah.
we're doing is we're
Right.
taking a chance, we're putting in a
100%.
proposal against hundreds of other people.
100%. 100%.
Or municipalities, not people, but other
You
municipalities.
can apply for the grant without, with less than 25 points, and you may still get it.
We didn't get it
Correct.
last, we didn't get it last
That was
year.
last year. That was last year. This is a different year. It's a different proposal. It's for
Black
17
Black
million.
13, by the way. Black 13, 35-1.
They're all 35-1, no matter what you think.
I have a bond resolution of the town of Seneca Falls, Seneca County, New York, adopted August 1st, authorizing Falls water distribution system consisting of the Seneca Falls former village of Seneca Falls District and the former village Seneca Falls permissive service area in an estimated maximum cost of $17,700,000, approaching said amount thereafter, or excuse me, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of up to $17,700,000 of bond anticipation notes and serial bonds of the town to pay the cost of the project. Whereas Section 643 of the town law, State of New York, empowers the town board of the town of Seneca Falls, Seneca County
I'll make a
to
motion.
manage, maintain. Thank you. Have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Just want to point out, this is a bond resolution, it's required to pass by 60% vote, and on a board of this size, that is 4 people, 4 affirmative votes in order to go.
Gotta pass by
Move it now.
60%?
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Opposed?
It's got to be
So carried,
2/3.
4-1. That's okay, right?
Yes,
Thank you.
4 is enough.
And then, Nikki, you gotta authorize that ASAP.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Pat, you want me to move down into the other parts?
Yes.
Okay, so on that moving, I'm gonna go to,
Gotta pass by what, 66%? Yes. 20,
3.
20, 20.
3 out of 5 is 6, but it's not.
so I'm doing nothing with C and D
I would ask that we revisit that later in the meeting,
later in the meeting.
after a short recess.
Okay. Do you wanna get started at that now? I can start doing some of the other resolutions?
I need somebody to print something out from the clerk's office.
Can you do that?
Or Peter.
Peter, no.
Oh, here, that's you.
Pete, you want me to let him in?
Yes,
What do
please.
you need me to print?
I'll go with it.
Okay, so we're skipping down to letter E, all right? I have a resolution to replace fencing at Van Rensselaer Water Tower, whereas the Van Rensselaer Water Tower is secured with a chain link fence installed in 1961 that has sustained damage over the years, whereas 3 companies were contacted to quote the project with only one providing a quote. Therefore, it be resolved that the Seneca Falls Town Board authorize Realty Fence Company of Geneva to repair and place a section of the fence at Van Rensselaer Water Tower at a cost of $5,875.45. Be it further resolved, this project is budgeted under line
I make a
F8.
motion, we put up the fence.
Okay,
I second.
second, please, discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, anybody opposed? So carried. Resolution to purchase powdered activation carbon.
Or F.
No, F.
I'm sorry,
Sewer jet. F. Sewer
There's a
jet.
sewer jet.
okay, so the next thing in my,
Here.
got it.
It's got it.
Yep. Purchase a sewer jet for vac truck, whereas the town water wastewater department needs a sewer jet for cleaning storm sewer pipes. Whereas we received 2 bids for the sewer jet, with the low bidder being Seneca equipment for $5,551. Therefore be resolved, the town board authorized purchasing said sewer jet from Seneca equipment for $5,551. And Joe attached the bid pricing. This is used to clean a lot of pipes underneath driveways, as we're doing some drainage issues as well. So,
I make a motion, we buy it.
okay,
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried. So letter G is purchase powdered activated carbon. Whereas the water treatment plant feeds powdered activated carbon to aid in the treatment of drinking water.
I make a motion, we purchase the 4,000 pounds of powder.
Okay, can I have a second for that, please?
2,000
It's
pounds.
2,000 pounds.
The resolution's wrong.
The resolution's wrong.
It's
The
four.
bill is for, look at the bill, it's for 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, we should change the resolution.
Typo.
But he said in our meeting it was 2,000, and I questioned him when I asked him when we had our meeting. I said, are you sure it's 2,000? And he said, yeah.
Well, I think the resolution should specify which it's supposed to be.
So what was on there, 2,000?
2,000 is on the paperwork, and when we had our meeting, he
Right.
said it was 2,000.
Yeah.
But on the
But the bill, the
bill
invoice
says
is
4,000.
4,000.
So which one is it?
Well, I'm assuming that, what the bill says, I'm assuming, but quantity 4,000 pounds. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking. Carbon report for 10,000. Won't go to waste, that's for sure. Okay, there was a motion, I don't know if anybody seconded it. What,
I'm not
anybody
gonna
sec-
approve it until I know which is what. I mean,
Okay.
what are we paying for?
Okay.
Well, if we need it for the water plant to operate, we at least ought to get to 2,000 anyway.
Well, I'm not gonna pay $10,000 for 2,000
No,
pounds.
well, we would pay the
And then-
appropriate price for 2,000, whatever
Well, what's the
that.
appropriate price?
I would like to make a good idea. Let's make an amendment, let me make an amendment to the resolution, and the town board approve purchasing 2,000 pounds of WPH powdered activated carbon from sole source supplier Colligan. Can I have a motion for half the price? Can I have a motion for, a second for that, please?
This is for 2,000 pounds
I'll
for
second
half
that.
the price?
For, yeah, for obviously not the price of 10,000.
Cost, yeah, okay.
Reason, I'm assuming this is very much needed, obviously.
For the treatment plant, yes.
Right.
Yeah, but you may not be able to do the job at 2,000 pounds. I mean, sometimes it's a changeover, and if it's 4,000 pounds, you need 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, I'd have to double check with Joe and James on the storage of this and what,
But didn't I ask Joe? I asked Joe.
You did, I understand completely.
He's like, oh no.
I don't know, without anybody being here, I don't know if this is needed next week
Call
or
our
not.
cell phone.
I don't know.
I would assume that the 2,000 is incorrect because the quote for 10,000 or 4,000, we just,
Probably go too low.
You know, when I was reading it, I noticed that, so. You should call.
Joe, I'm in a town board meeting still, okay? And a resolution for purchase powdered activated carbon. You had 2,000 pounds, but the invoice, well, your resolution said 2. The invoice says 4. When we talked about this in the committee meeting, you said it was 2, but what is it, 2 or 4? Great. Good. Great. Okay. So you want the resolution to say 4,000 pounds for $10,360. Okay. And it's needed right away, I'm assuming. Good. All right. Okay. All right. Right. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah. It was meant to be 4,000 pounds, okay? And this is the major combatant against blue-green algae blooms on the lake.
Yep.
Or it's that type of the season coming up. So I'm going to withdraw my amendment to the resolution. Now therefore be resolved that the Seneca Falls Town Board approve purchasing 4,000 pounds of WPH powdered activated carbon from sole source supplier Kelgan Carbon. Can I have a motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried. Resolution to purchase auto flushing hydrant, whereas the Seneca Falls water system has multiple dead ends that require frequent flushing in order to maintain water quality. Kind of ironic, isn't it, Steve? Whereas these three quotes were sourced for an automatic flushing hydrant, now therefore be resolved that the Seneca Falls Town Board purchase an Eclipse 9700 auto flushing hydrant from the lowest quoted company, U.S. Blue Book, for $2,729. Have a motion for that, please.
I'll make a motion.
And second? Folks, somebody's got a second to have a discussion.
Second, sorry.
All right, well, okay.
Thinking.
It's getting late, and there's a lot more to do. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried. Purchase Grasshopper 32.5D 72-inch mower, whereas the water treatment plant requires equipment to maintain a large property. Tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take this off the agenda, okay? Peter and I were talking today, and we have an idea that I want to float by water and sewer and highway, okay? And that idea is we should be doing more things collectively, okay? And why can't we have somebody go down to the water treatment plant and mow the grass? Somebody who's got more time, or somebody who's got idle time, kind of like we're cleaning up vacant lots, okay? So I'm going to take this off the agenda. We have to have a discussion, and then I'll let you know how that discussion goes, and if it doesn't go well, then we'll be back here in September.
No, but that's not a bad idea. I mean, you've got a cemetery crew. You know, why should water treatment plant operators be mowing the grass? That's ridiculous. You know, paying them whatever they get, $26 an hour, $24, when you can hire somebody for $15 an hour to mow grass like we do in the cemetery.
And why do we have lawnmowers at the cemetery? We have lawnmowers at the highway department. We have lawnmowers over here in Parks and Recreation. We have a lawnmower here.
A lawnmower there, yeah, everywhere.
And we got trailers. Load it up on the trailer and drive it down there.
I'm not in favor of spending $20,000 for a lawnmower either.
$21,000 for
Huh?
a diesel Grasshopper.
Oh, well, I'm not in favor of buying a diesel
With a
anything.
Cadillac seat.
It doesn't even have a power takeoff on it. It'd be different if it was a tractor that could do something.
But that's what we're trying
$20,000 to mow the grass, you could hire it out.
Resolution. Moving on. Resolution authorizing the town supervisor, that's me, to sign an engagement contract with the MRB Group for grant administration for the non-agricultural, non-point source planning grant point. Whereas the town of Seneca Falls received.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Just for discussion purposes, this is the grant I was talking to that we received for the engineering study at Barrett Street Culvert. And The engagement would be for the MRB group to administer the grant.
Don't we already have an agreement with MRB paying them to do our grant writing?
They do the grant writing, but the administration of the grant is a completely different animal. The administration of any of these grants require monthly paperwork.
Isn't that something that our town manager should be doing?
Administering grants? That's all he would be doing is administering. I can't begin to tell you the paperwork involved in the reports that are required for all these grants that we have going on.
Disability insurance, yeah, that sounds like something that the town manager would fall in his wheelhouse, absolutely.
That's your opinion. Myself involved for the last 4 years, I wouldn't.
But you weren't a full-time employee.
No, I understand that. I understand.
Okay.
Okay, point taken. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
It's carried 4-1.
Hey, wait, I want to go back to the lawnmower. I want to say one more thing. If we could get $11,500 for a trade-in on a lawnmower, how bad could it be? Why don't we just keep mowing the grass with that?
That's a tractor that we just bought. It's a tractor, a John Deere tractor that we just bought last year.
Yeah, whatever it is, if you can get 11 grand for it, it must be pretty good. You know what I'm saying?
Why would we trade it in?
I don't know why we didn't like talk to another department, see if they could use it, you know, sort of like.
That's what we're gonna do.
The lawnmower thing really
Why don't we just
irked
give
me.
the tractor to
Sorry.
a different department?
The lawnmower thing bothers me. 20 grand for a lawnmower.
How about asking for something like that?
I'd hire a kid and buy a $400 self-propel to make them cut nonstop. Where they ended on Monday, they'd start on Tuesday. But, okay, I'm done with the lawnmower.
We can stay on it if you want. You know.
No.
I got all night.
We have an agenda.
No,
I got all night.
That's not that.
All right, resolution for the town board of Seneca Falls to create a laborer's position for the town highway department.
I make a motion, we create the labor position.
And need a second for this.
Second.
Discussion, again, I tried to explain in an email, civil service, we have 2 laborers position designated for the highway department. This would be creation of a 3rd one. We're having a difficult time finding, obviously, MEO lights like everybody else in the world is. Hopefully the laborer will be someone that we can supervise and make a determination before we move on into getting CDL license and so forth. So that's hopefully the game plan.
What email was this?
I'm sorry?
I don't recall an email, but at any rate, is it because of qualifications? What is the issue?
For a laborer?
Yeah.
For
Are
a
we having
laborer,
difficulty
basically under
finding
civil
an MEO
service,
light?
you just have to be able to, there really isn't any real qualifications for a laborer. All you have to do is be.
I understand, I don't need that explanation. My question is it because of qualifications with the MEO light that we're trying to find another laborer?
There's no MEO lights or heavy on the civil service list.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll make a motion.
I think we got a motion in a second. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried. Have a resolution from the Seneca Falls Highway Department, resolution to replace motor equipment light operator, whereas the highway department.
Motion, we replace the operator, if we can find one.
If we can
But
find
we've got to give the
I
okay.
thought that isn't that what this one is? This resolution for Dale Gibson?
That was to advertise for another laborer. This is the other laborer, okay? This is filled as the second laborer's position.
Okay, I have it on order.
So, whereas the highway department will use this person to perform all the duties except any duties that require CDL, therefore be resolved that the Seneca Falls Town Board hereby authorize the hiring of Dale Gibson as a laborer starting at $20 an hour. Motion, I think, by Mr. Seneca. Was there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Or any further discussion? I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
have just,
Yes.
so, did you guys, what's his background, like, were you part of?
Yeah, we met with Jeremy. He showed us the application. We asked him if he talked to the chief of police about the person. He said he did meet with the chief of police, give him the application. Tim reviewed it, or reviewed the candidate, and looks whatever he does. I don't know exactly what Tim does. But he did that, and he interviewed him, and he's working for us currently at the cemetery. So Jeremy has been supervising him as a cemetery worker, so we felt he'd give him a chance as a laborer on the highway. He was interested, so.
Okay,
Any further discussion?
no.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Resolution to replace the highway deputy, whereas the highway department would like to fill the position of highway deputy, whereas the highway department will use this person to perform all the daily duties of the MEO, help with any absence during vacations and tasks, et cetera, et cetera. Now therefore be
Make a
resolved
motion.
that the Seneca Falls Town Board does hereby authorize hiring of Sean Van Gee as the highway department for a stipend of $1.50 an hour. Motion and a second?
Make a motion.
I think we already have a motion. Caitlin did. In a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
How long has he been working for the highway?
Less than a year.
So, what, is that the longest that we've had employees work for us within that
No,
highway department?
there's one person there that's been there over 20 years. I think,
That's not qualified,
I
or?
think Lisa's been there over 20 years.
It's been that
This is
long.
the person he feels most comfortable with being the deputy. He said he's going to, train him in the things that a deputy would have to do when he's out, as far as the computer, if anything has to be purchased and things like that. So the person's gonna have to have some training, but this is the person he's most comfortable with working with as the deputy. That's all I can tell you. But we met with him, right?
It's really his decision. I mean, he's an elected official, he gets to pick who he wants to hire as his deputy.
But we also fund these positions too, so we do have say.
Correct.
Yeah, we have, absolutely we do. The dollars, but we don't get to make the choice.
Right, but
Who.
this is why we're having discussions,
If you wanna
so,
cut his
I mean,
budget,
I think that it's important that we know that, this person is less than a year on the job. And that,
He doesn't have-
and that we're making a decision
He
to
doesn't have a
appoint
whole
them
lot
at
of
$1.50
seasoned
an hour
employees,
as the
unfortunately.
highway deputy, so I think that's just important to kind of point out as far as retention within these departments. But at any rate, so where are we at as far as voting on it now? No
Just,
further
that was
discussion?
discussion, any more discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried. Resolution to set up a capital fund for safe routes to school, whereas the town of Seneca Falls has received grant monies for the safe routes to school capital project, phase 3, whereas the funds will be carried over from the 2022 budget. Therefore, be resolved, the Seneca Falls Town Board approves creating a
I
cap.
make a motion that we
I'll second.
fund this.
Okay, so again, this is the third, if you have a motion, I need a second, please.
I second it.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry. So this is the third phase of the Safe Routes to School. This is the last project. The design is being done right now. We received a grant for it. Expenses are coming in, we have to pay those expenses and go from there. In the 2024 budget, there'll be a budgetary item for our contribution to the phase 3, our part of the matching grant, which will be at about a $478,000 price tag, but over 3.5 miles of sidewalks will have been placed and put down throughout that community.
Now, will they do both sides of the street, or they just do one side?
I just said, we're working on the design right now, so I don't know where they are and so forth, but
So you just
sometimes
do
both,
one side?
sometimes one, just depends on where it is. Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
And they still won't.
So carried. Authorization to appropriate unexpended fund balances to finance purchase of a vacuum truck from the water and sewer funds in the town of Seneca Falls fiscal year 2022. Budget to eliminate negative account balances for the year-end closing.
I make a motion, we make the proper accounting transactions. Even though we bought the truck, we need to clean up the way it was purchased and the funds were allocated, so the next time we're audited, you know, we don't get a ding in the audit.
You got a motion in a second?
Second.
And Frank, these are all things that that Peter has been working on in response to the auditors in February, okay? As I said in the beginning of the meeting, these are a lot of things are happening that now put us in compliance. So these are all housekeeping duties to take care of those things. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? So carried. Similar situation, authorization to transfer funds to the town of Seneca Falls fiscal 22 budget to eliminate negative account balances for the purpose of year-end closing.
I make a motion that we
Okay,
transfer.
in a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Again, more housekeeping. There's all kinds of budget transfers that are being cleaned up so that we can move forward with this project, obviously. And it's been a project.
So Peter, when do you anticipate we'll close the books for 2022?
The actual accounting books are prepared to be closed. We're reconciling the bank statements now, and we're in September, and those months got a little weird. So, but we're making progress.
Okay. But we are up to date though for this year, right?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yep.
we're good for this
Yep,
year.
Yep, and the only reason that we don't publish the documents, the official financial documents, is because we haven't reconciled the fund balances to start with.
Right.
So as soon as we get that done, I can give you the whole package, but we will not suffer this problem again.
Do you want to like I guess at a date like November 15th? We might.
Yeah, I hope before Labor Day, but I think it might be sooner than that.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, Labor Day's in September, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, there's 3 more months of bank statements.
All right. Didn't know if you got, you know. Hey, happy anniversary.
That's
Thank you,
right.
sir.
It's a year.
Today's Peter's anniversary, with the town for a year.
I'm off probation.
There you go. And you forgot, it was a double probation.
Nobody brought
Only the old people in the room know
Nobody
double
brought in a
double.
cake either.
That's right, and I did go from being Butarsky to Dean Werwer too.
There
Let's
you
not
go. All
forget that.
right, there you go. All right, authorization to transfer funds in the town of Seneca Falls fiscal year 2022 to eliminate negative account balances for the purpose of year-end closing. Can I have a motion for this, please?
We already did
We
that.
did
I did this one?
We did
Can we
that.
vote?
Yes.
We're down to the budget transfer.
I don't think we did the third one.
Oh, so you're doing for Parks and Recreation?
Q, Parks and Recs.
Appropriate unexpected.
We did that.
You did the vacuum truck, you did not do the one after the vacuum truck.
We did not take a vote on the budget transfer.
Okay,
That's where
that's
we
right,
are.
though.
Did one.
So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, anybody opposed? So carried. This is a different one. Authorization to transfer funds for fiscal year budget to eliminate negative account balances for the year-end closing. Can I have a motion for this one,
Make a
please?
motion.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Same thing, same type of thing, okay? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? And finally, authorization to appropriate unexpected fund balances, finance emergency facility repairs from the CR and CR2 funds, which is the rec center in Vince's Park. Motion for this, please.
Make a motion.
And second?
Second.
Okay. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So carried. Pat, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second, get this.
He's going back.
So we do need to do seeker proposed local law number 3, right?
You want to do this, appoint the zone ZBA?
Sure, we can do that. Have a motion to appoint John Wood as an alternate to the zoning board, please.
I make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll
Second? Thank you. We had a resignation on the zoning board, so the alternate moved up, and the second alternate hasn't been to a meeting all year for the most part, and Mr. Wood is interested, so he's going to be getting that, okay? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, anybody opposed? So called. Okay, so, proposed local law 3, amend chapter 213 of the code. So with any local law, you have to have a seeker. So, Pat, take it over, okay?
Yeah, so what I just passed out is the seeker documents for proposed local law number 3. This, in your packet, you also have the body of the local law as well as the resolution to adopt the local law. So, but the first is the conducting the seeker review. So the seeker review has been put together by the MRB. Sean Lowe, who works very closely with our planning committee, has put this together based on the proposed local law. So now this is not an actual action where somebody's going to be putting a shovel into a ground, doing a project. This is the creation of a local law, and the local law is the one we've discussed regarding peddling, soliciting, transient businesses, and mobile food vending, or otherwise food trucks has gotten the most attention. And again, we've tried to incorporate the comments of the Seneca Falls Business Association in creating the local law to keep food trucks and whatnot, have some regulations, and keep them out of the downtown and the Sackett's business district. So, this, what I just handed out to you is the seeker forms. This same document was part of your packet for the July 11 meeting. So this has come before the board previously and distributed to everybody. It just was not in your packet for this evening's meeting, but this was distributed at the previous meeting, but the board did not act on it at that time. So what this form, the purpose of this form is really to guide the town's review of the environmental impacts of the proposed local law. And it's the same type of forms that's used for any other type of project. But this again is for the adoption of a local law. This again has been put together by Sean Lowe of MRB, and in his review, he did not find any areas that had any impacts or anything other than either no or small impact that may occur by the adoption of this law. Does the board want me to go through the 13 pages of the document that has 18 areas to direct the board's inquiry in this environmental review? Or is the board satisfied with our consultant's presentation of these documents, that there would be no or nothing more than no impact or small impact that would occur with any of the 18 areas of review?
I looked at it after I got it in July, and certainly, I mean, again, I've said this before, sometimes you got to jump through hoops for no reason at all, but it's called job security in Albany, but basically this is clearly a type 1 seeker review. So I don't need to go through the document anymore, but my personal opinion. Okay, so there's a resolution that we need to pass. The resolution, whereas the Seneca Falls Town Board, here known as the Town Board, has determined the above referenced action to be a type 1 action pursuant to type part 617 of the State Environmental Review Regulations. So be it finally resolved that the town board does hereby make a determination of non-significance on said action, and the town supervisor hereby directed issued the negative declaration as evidence of the town board determination of environmental significance. I need a motion for that, please.
Make a motion.
And I need a second for that, please.
I'll second it.
Any discussions or further questions for Pat? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Opposed?
That's carried 4-1.
So now, along with the documents that were with the colored agenda, for everybody, there was a resolution to adopt. That one's for the other one. Right. There's a resolution that's going to look exactly like that to adopt the Chapter 213 peddling, soliciting, and transient businesses.
Okay, so again, same situation, local law 4. Our consultant went through it, is deemed as a type 1. So
Hold on, before we go to local law 4, the adoption, we just conducted the seeker review. The next logical thing would be to adopt the local law itself. Adopt local law number 3, the peddling and soliciting local law.
And how am I going to do that?
Okay.
Got a resolution right here.
Well, we have a resolution. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I probably have it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure it's in the papers.
Resolution to adopt local law number 3 of 2023, chapter 213, peddler soliciting, transient business and mobile food vending. Whereas the town board of the town of Seneca Falls believes it would be advantageous to the town to amend the town code as it relates to peddlers. Whereas the town board reviewed and accepted completed full environmental assessment forms. And whereas the town board is given consideration for the seeker regulations. Resolved that the town clerk is directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting in the local laws of the town of Seneca Falls and give due notice to the adoption of the state local law to the Secretary of State of New York. Have a motion for that, please.
I make a motion.
In a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'd just like to make a comment. I'm all in favor of charging a fee, having folks register their food trucks, having the health department, whatever access they follow the regulations. But I'm not in favor of the limitations within our town. I just don't feel that it's a problem that exists. I haven't seen it. I'm not aware of it. I have had nobody complain about it. So to me, it's just adding regulation. And I think people like less regulation. We should be taking some codes off the book rather than just keep piling on and on and on, make it more complicated, and especially for something that doesn't exist. I mean, I kind of get it, where if I had a restaurant downtown, I might not like a food truck parking out front, but you know what? This is America. Free enterprise, capitalism. I can't stop somebody if I'm downtown from opening a restaurant right next to my restaurant. So I just don't see it as an issue. I don't think food trucks are interested in coming. It's not like we have a town that at noon, all the businesses, we don't have any businesses downtown, but folks empty out into the street and are looking for a place to eat. It just doesn't exist. So I think, again, we're building a pipe to nowhere, and here we're putting codes in place for a problem that doesn't exist. So I'm not going to support it. I do support charging. I mean, if we amended it, took that out, I definitely support it, but I'm not going to support it at this time.
Okay, any other further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, that's carried 4-1.
Take it back. You need it?
I just gotta put it in the major file. I'll find you my castle here in a second.
So what what I'm handing out now is the very similar looking form, the seeker review for the landlord, absentee landlord, that local law that we had a public hearing for earlier this evening.
Thank you.
And as you go through, it's going to look very similar, because again, this is for the adoption of a local law, and it's done on a form that's used for, large construction projects and whatnot. So, again, this is, you have the 18 questions to guide the town's environmental review, and in the review by our consultant from MRB, he found that there was nothing more than either no or small impact that would occur or may occur as a result of the adoption of this local law. So if the board has any particular questions in any of the areas, we can discuss that, but otherwise, having found no moderate to large impacts, it would be appropriate for this board to make a finding that this be a negative declaration.
Okay, so I got a question. Sure. Of course. We declared ourselves as the lead agency, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then we have MRB do this, correct?
Yeah.
So they're not affiliated with the town.
Well, you hire them as
We
consultants.
hire them, yeah, they work for us in a sense, as our consultant. Can we next time we have like one of these to do, can we designate the planning board to do it? I mean, because I'll tell you, here's why, because I've gone to a number of planning board meetings, and when they get these seekers, they read them each question one at a time out loud in public. And everybody that's at the meeting can hear what it is. And then there's 5 individuals, that are looking at it and making a comment on it. And I'm not trying to take money away from MRB for doing these, but I'm just saying, we've got a competent group of people in the town, the planning board, that makes themselves the lead agency on a lot of things. Why aren't we utilizing them as the lead agency?
Okay. Because one would be because this is the adoption of a local law, and this is the only board that can do that. This is the board taking the action.
No, I mean, we made ourselves the lead agency and had somebody else do it. I'm saying make ourselves the lead agency and have the planning board do it as somebody else.
And then the planning board would come back with their recommendation.
The way it should be done, Frank, and I've said this many times, is that we should do exactly what the planning board's doing. This board should go through each question, review them, and answer them. Now, it may be fairly quick, but that's the process that should be adhered to. That's why I didn't vote to support the last one. We aren't doing the proper process. I'm not going to support the secret.
And I agree 100% with the process, 100% on things that have some environmental impact, like a landfill, for example. 100% I would be in favor of.
We don't know if we don't review it together.
I read it, and as I said, and Pat offered to go through it. If the majority of the board wants to go through it, we can go through it. That's correct. It's not a problem. Does the majority of the board want to go through part 2 and 3 of the seeker?
No.
No.
No, but I want the town planning.
They don't want to do more secrets. Why would the town planning board even want to do that?
They don't have, they don't have.
More volunteers.
You can't pick and choose what you want to be thorough with and what you don't want to be thorough with. I'm sorry. You can't. You can't.
I mean, this is our legal responsibility.
It is.
The board.
Okay. And you hired a consultant to put this together. He did that. He presented the findings to everybody last month for the July 11 meeting, and now we're taking action on it. Or not. That's up to the board.
Okay?
So this has.
We good to move on or no?
I'm good.
So.
Yeah, I'm ready to move on. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't do a good job on this, but I'm just saying.
I don't know. I guess I can have a conversation with. I guess I can have a conversation with the planning board, but I got to agree with Steve. I mean, why would they want to take on something like that? They're all volunteers. Their agenda is filled to the rim as it begin with from most meetings, and now they're going to sit there another 2 hours going through a section of part 2 and 3. We'll never find anybody.
Well, And again, what the planning board, when they're reviewing something, they're reviewing a project that's gonna have a physical impact on the land, or it's some type of project, or something. This is the adoption of the local law. This is the only board that can take action on that has authority to do so. So it would, I mean, you could ask them to, you know, report back to you, but this is where the action is, and this is the board that should be taking, you know, taking the action on seeker as well as the local law.
Okay, so the first resolution is determination of environmental significance. Town Board of Seneca Falls has determined the above reference action to be a type 1 action pursuant to part 617 of the State Environmental Review Regulations. Be therefore now resolved that said action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts based on a review of the full environmental assessment. Be it finally resolved that the town board does hereby make a determination of non-significance on said action, and the town supervisor is hereby directed issue the negative declaration as evidence of the town board determination of environmental
I make a
non-significance.
motion, we do the negative declaration.
Second.
Pat?
Yes.
Are you going to get me, or does Nikki have what I have to sign off on?
I have those, we can
Okay,
discuss that after.
got it. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Let the minutes reflect that Councilman Churchill feels it's the town board's obligation to go through parts 2 and 3.
More thorough.
Okay, with no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, anybody opposed?
Opposed?
So carried, 4-1.
All right, well, that wraps up local law 3 and 4.
Well, no, we gotta vote on local law.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun, you're right, now you have the adoption.
Local law 4.
I have a resolution here to adopt local law 4 of 2023, chapter 215, rental property, absentee landlords, and criminal activity. Whereas the town board of Seneca
I make a
Falls,
motion that we adopt local law number 4.
can I have a second for that?
Second.
Now we have discussion.
Further discussion.
Yeah. I'm gonna vote no on this if it's $500. I can't go with 500. I could go below the 5,000. I'm willing to go to 2,500. You know, but
Okay.
I can't go do 500. It's just not enough to get anybody in compliance, as far as I'm concerned. They don't even pay for the lawn mowing. We might as well hit them good. You know?
They can borrow the water and sewers down the water treatment plant. Call it a lawnmower.
Rent it out.
Okay, any other further discussion? All in favor of this resolution to adopt local law 4, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
That's carried 4-1.
Frank, withdraw, right? Got it.
Now, Pat, that is that. I have a motion here to, total amount of credits, pool credits for August is $3,074.40. Can I have a motion to?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Are there any other new business for this board? I do have one item. Coming around to the board members is the new host agreement that was negotiated with the town and Seneca Meadows, contingent upon Seneca Meadows That's gotta go to Dawn, and that's gotta go to Kate. And that's gotta go to Nikki. Contingent upon only, and I wanna,
Is there a reason this isn't on the agenda?
yeah, it's under board member agenda.
No,
And he's doing it.
This should have been, the public should have been
Absolutely, if you just
notified.
let me finish, I agree 100%, okay?
Well, why do you agree 100%, but it's not on the agenda, so the public doesn't know it's being presented?
Okay, so this is the new host agreement contingent solely on the fact that the DEC gives them their permit. If they don't, then it's nothing, okay? This will be posted on our website tomorrow. There will be, coming around next, the memorandum of agreement, or I should say memorandum of understanding that we'll explain to you. The board, please review this for the next month. Action will be taken consideration at September's meeting. So everybody has the agreement. Everybody in the public will have an opportunity to look at our website and take a look at the agreement as well. Okay? So no board action will be taken tonight.
If somebody wanted to come to the town of Seneca Falls and say, gee, you know what? I don't have a computer, I want this.
We have hard copies available in the clerk's office.
Oh, that's
Okay.
good.
And our beautiful library.
It's gonna be in the library too?
The second document I'm giving you is the actual memorandum of understanding that will be under for consideration in September. So again, you have a month to look through that memorandum, and you can see exactly what the language is for the memorandum of understanding. And in a moment, we'll explain what that is, but again, this will be under consideration in September. That'll be on our website, or copies of that will be, who don't have a computer, copies of it will be available in the clerk's office.
And who negotiated these agreements? There was no Democratic party.
There was, if you remember in September, there was a committee appointed in January of 2023. Yeah. And the committee was Caitlin, myself, Town Attorney Morrell, engineers.
Nobody from the Democratic side of the board?
You mean Democrat Party?
Yeah.
No.
We just have a different, just ask them.
What's this?
I know, at the county level, that's the way it's usually done. You get representatives from both sides.
Did you offer?
Can you pass them out for me, including those people?
I mean, you toured the landfill, so.
Can we discuss the well?
Lots of paper.
Oh,
So it looks like to me, I mean.
I got you covered. Everybody else have one?
Thank you. I handled that. So this is kind of a summary of the host agreement, and we'll go through a couple of these things. And again, this will also be on our website.
So you're going to go through this tonight without the public aware of the fact?
I'm just going over what highlights of it are.
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone going over anything regarding the host benefit agreement till September. Do I have a second? Didn't think so. Because we don't care about the public.
Yes.
Do what we want.
This will be completely transparent. And
It's not, Mike. It should have been on the agenda. People should have been aware that it was going
In
to be
September,
presented
people have
today.
all the opportunity in the
We
world.
shouldn't be going through anything
to make-
tonight.
In September, the people.
Say it as many times as you want, it's wrong.
Okay.
It's not the
So noted.
democratic process.
So noted. Thank you. This presentation will give you some overviews of what the host agreement's about. First of all, what is a memorandum of understanding? Brody Smith is here from one of our members of the negotiating team from Don Cheney and King. Brody, thank you for being here, and you can provide your insights for me on that.
Will you be returning in September?
I will do whatever the board directs me. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you and to answer your questions about, some of the process here. There's obviously, as the supervisor alluded to, a lot of process going forward in the future, but I think it was wise at the outset to give the board the opportunity to get this information and digest it for a month, before you have that final public process.
I'm going to excuse myself.
So the first question is, what is a memorandum of understanding?
Excuse me, Brody, we have an executive session.
You're going to have it without me. I got to go.
Have a good evening.
So a memorandum of understanding is you can think of it as an initial agreement. It's an agreement enter into expressing your intention to enter into a binding agreement at a later date. So what is being proposed to the board is considering a memorandum of understanding to enter into at a later date a host community agreement. So this memorandum of understanding is not binding on the parties, but it's a statement of your intention to go forward with the binding agreement in the future. And I'll tell you in a moment why it's necessary to have this initial step, because from a common sense point of view, like why are we agreeing to agree at a later date? Well, the reason is there is a secret process that we have to wait for a couple things to happen first before you would even want to consider entering into the binding agreement. The DEC has a process that they have to go through. The planning board would have a process they would have to go through. But this is your opportunity to express your agreement to the broader terms of agreement that you can later enter into the binding agreement. What is a host community agreement? So a host community agreement, or an HCA, is a negotiated agreement between a private landholder that wants to build something and an elected body and part of that agreement is financial benefits could be one component of it, would be provided in response to the approval of the project. So what's the classic example of a host community agreement? Let's say someone's building a large big box retail establishment and it's going to require a new right-hand turn lane and a new traffic signal. Well, that would be something that would need to be borne, that expense would need to be borne by the developer. So the same thing applies in other contexts. Here we're talking about there's certain expenses that will be incurred by the community that are associated with the expansion of the landfill, and that money should be provided by that entity to offset the public's costs. Same concept. Also, HCA's, in addition to providing monetary compensation, they can require certain measures to be taken to mitigate the impacts of a new development, in this case, expansion of the landfill. So you'll see, and you'll hear from engineers in a moment about what those measures are. They focus on odor control. There'll be other measures that the supervisor will discuss in terms of traffic mitigation, measures concerning compensation to fire departments. So that besides just money, there's other certain measures that can be taken. What's the idea behind an HCA? If there was no HCA, the host community for a project would bear all the costs associated with the impacts of that project. An HCA, so money being paid to the community through revenue that's generated by the use and people paying into that company, here SMI being that gives the opportunity for those impacts, those negative impacts that this community bears, to be spread over the whole region that actually gets to enjoy the use here at the landfill. So the HCA is a way for the community to be compensated in a way that wouldn't otherwise be compensated, and it more equally distributes the costs of hosting a solid waste management facility to the entire service area. So this is not, I know, a completely alien concept to you folks, since you've had an HCA since 1990. The HCA with SMI, this would be a new agreement. There are differences to this agreement, certainly differences in the amount of compensation, differences in the structure of the agreement, but the concept that there is an HCA associated with the community hosting this landfill is not a new concept. It's not a novel legal concept. It's the most fair way to compensate the community for the impacts of this potential use of property in the community. So the final slide for me, are these proposed terms fine? No, they are not. We go through the reasons why we're doing an MOU for this HCA instead of considering the HCA right now. The town can't enter into the HCA until you've completed, until environmental review of the project is completed. SEEKR, State Environmental Quality Review Act. And we were just talking about SEEKR a little bit. So SEEKR is a law that says you need to consider the environmental impacts of any governmental action before committing to a course on that action. Here, the first step for the landfill to expand is for them to go through the DEC process. So they have an application for a permit with the DEC to get a new, for the expansion. So that SEEKR review, that review of the potential environmental impacts is going to happen first, and it's going to happen once, right? So the DEC is going to do this. So we can't, as a board, commit to sign an HCA now, or any particular terms of an HCA, before that environmental review is completed. So we have to wait till the DEC to complete that. But there's a little bit of a chicken and egg issue, is that that's certainly going to be something, information that's relevant to the DEC's process. It's certainly information that's relevant to the town for its planning, and it's certainly information that's relevant to the applicant for them to plan their project. So it is reasonable for you to look at the potential terms of the HCA and to have an MOU saying what your intentions are going forward, provided that the permit is issued, provided that the SEEKR process is completed correctly, provided that all those things happen under the state's rules, the solid waste management facility permit rules that you see referenced in your slide here, parts 360 and 363 of the New York Code of Rules and Regulations. So once they complete the permit process, once they complete the SEEKR process, then the proposed draft terms of the HCA that you'll review over the next month could be acted on. Eventually, there's also a step in the process. Your planning board will review this too. So the HCA is most likely to be associated with the planning board. So there are steps. We're acknowledging there's steps to happen in the future, but we're also acknowledging it makes sense to get all the facts before the board, to get all the facts before the public at the earliest opportunity possible, so that there can be a fulsome and transparent discussion of what the potential terms of an HCA would be.
Can we ask questions while you're talking?
Of course.
Okay.
I work for you.
All right, okay. So we've got this, the MOU. Now you just mentioned the planning board. So they're going to get a copy of it. So they're going to put it on their agenda. Is that correct? To look at?
So
and then what, well, let me finish the question. So let's say they get it, they put it on their agenda, they meet the last, I think they meet either the last Wednesday or last Thursday of each month. And so they look at it and say, oh wow, too complicated to do this month. So we're going to postpone it till, like this is August, they get it, look at it September. We're going to postpone it, make a decision in October. Does that slow the process down for us, or we have to have a determination from the planning board before the town board can do anything?
I think it's a really good question. And I think the idea is important to differentiate the difference between the MOU and the actual HCA. No one's saying you're going to sign an HCA, the final HCA, anytime soon, right? So the MOU is a statement by this board of your intention to enter into an HCA under these broad terms, which may change depending on process. And one of those processes could be the planning board. But the intention, in terms of process, I think from the town's point of view, is not to have the planning board at this point spend a lot of time going through the HCA, which is a complex document, where they don't even have an application. So I think the MOU is your board's statement of an intention to enter into an HCA at some point in the future, provided that the DEC gets through their environmental process, provided that the DEC issues the permit, provided that the planning board at some point in the future provides the approvals that are necessary under the town code to go forward. At that point, the planning board will, I'm sure, go through the HCA and other aspects and details of the plan ad nauseum over the course of probably months, but not at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, as Brody's trying to say, nothing's going to happen with the HCA until the year 2024, okay? Nothing happens unless the DEC permits SMI for the expansion. Nothing happens. The only thing this potential MOU will do is that if and when it happens, then the town, whoever is on the town board at that time, will have a document that if the landfill continues in operation, well, then we've negotiated a new document with them. That board, whoever it may be, might say, you know what, we want to go back to the negotiation. We don't want to do that. Okay, there's no legal binding here. This is a year off at the most. I don't see the DEC doing anything until late 2024.
So a fair question might be like, why do it, right? So I think the answer to that question is everybody wants to know, right? The DEC, the public, they're all asking questions as part of the secret permitting process. Will there be an HCA? And so we need to provide the broad strokes of what an acceptable HCA will look like.
All this is a negotiated settlement between two parties, and each party agrees right now that they left the bargaining table. They said, hey, we can live with this on this side, we can live with this on this side. And that's all this is. It's not binding. It's really not binding on anybody until there's a vote, from each. Well, I don't know how the landfill votes, but I mean, we've got to do a vote here of the people on this board. Like a simple majority, 3-2 or 4-1 or unanimous. There's only so many ways you can juggle 5 votes. So, but if they do get the okay from the DEC, then theoretically, this is what we'd be living with. Unless there was somebody that said, we want to go back and renegotiate.
This would be the agreement.
Item 4, we want to approve everything but item 4, and go back and talk about item 4. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's a good succinct summary, and I think it kind of brings everything back to the beginning, right? Go back to what it's called, the Memorandum of Understanding. This is an understanding that was reached between two parties, acknowledging that before we could ever sign a binding agreement, a lot of steps have to happen, and the world may change. But this is our understanding at this point.
At this point in time, this is what everybody has agreed to.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Hans.
Any other questions? I appreciate you. I know it's a long meeting. Appreciate you listening.
Okay, so when negotiations started, we start sitting down. Our first 3-4 meetings was just talking about what our major concern was for the town. And our major concern is odor control and odor reporting. That is our major concern. And we spent hours just talking about that part of it, okay? And another person on the negotiation team is Hans Arnold from Barton and Judas. And Bill, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Is here, and they're going to address some of the new restrictions, new requirements, I shouldn't say restrictions, new requirements that will be part if we go forward with this agreement. So, Hans, I'll let you take that part of it.
My name's Hans Arnold. I'm the Senior Project Manager at Barton & Judas. And just a couple background comments. So the first thing I want to say is thank you to the town board for allowing us the opportunity to work with you on this project. It's important, and we traveled a long way, and I think we came up with a very, very good proposal for you.
Hans, can I send you over the podium with the microphone, please? I'm
Where do
sorry.
we have this one?
There's one up there.
I'm going to do this because then I can.
Mike and I are deaf.
Okay.
In both ears.
I'll speak up. Is that better? Okay. Just by way of background, so you know where I'm coming from, I've worked on several host agreements for landfills across New York State, and I also track host community agreements across the state as they are adopted and as they are amended. And I do want to make one other comment. I think based on my experience with negotiating a number of these, and I've done that, I've been solely working in the arena of solid waste management for over 40 years. There's no question that negotiating the terms of this agreement early in the process, early in the permitting process, which Mike has referenced and Brody has referenced, achieves the best outcome for the town. It puts the town in the best position. And I think as we go through this tonight, the proof of that will be the commitments that have been secured by the town from the landfill and the financial package that is coming forward and will be coming the town's way. There's no question that all the terms in this agreement that we're going to cover briefly tonight are important, but as Mike said, it was made very clear to the whole team on day one that the priority issue had to be odor control, odor management, and landfill gas management, and there had to be priority attention paid to that. So the first slide that I'm referencing, or first page, is I think number 6, and just by way of background, as I think you know, in New York State, the regulations are very strict and require the installation of a network of both horizontal and vertical pipes in every landfill facility to collect landfill gas that's generated during the life of the landfill facility, so that the emissions that come from the landfill comply with the Federal Environmental Protection Agency Clean Air Act. My colleague tonight, in just a minute or two, Bill Dobler, is regarded as one of the leading experts in the country on landfill gas management, and he'll give you as much detail as you want to get into on that. Generally, there are reasons why odors come from landfills, not only the Seneca Meadows landfill, but virtually every landfill, and those can range from simply the receipt of raw garbage coming from households and businesses as it's generated at the time that the waste is delivered until that waste is compacted and covered. And then the odors can range from, in the longer term, the decomposition of waste that's been in place in the landfill. But that's actually much more limited and rare because of the landfill gas collection system that is constructed and operated throughout the life of the landfill. So, I don't want to read you the points that are on that, and that it will be made available to the public, but under the proposed agreement, Seneca Meadows will retain an independent third party that'll be operating 24/7, 365 to take in all complaints, log those complaints, and respond to those complaints. I believe it's within a 1-hour time period. The town will be notified at the very time that those complaints are received, and there'll be a log kept, and the town will receive regular reports on those. Sure, yes.
Okay. So on the independent person who will come out and check the odor, they will not be located on the landfill, right?
No, I don't believe that's correct. The system will be set up by an independent third party, but I believe that the people that go out and actually check the odors will have to be trained and certified with the equipment, something that Bill Dobler is going to cover.
Right, but my point is, look, if you work on the landfill, and I've read a lot of stuff about it, if you work, and it's just like working in a cow barn. Let's forget about the landfill. I'm a dairy farmer. I helped out the dairy farmer I did for many years because I hunted on his land. Man, when I went in the barn, it smelled, you know. to him, he didn't smell anything. He's there all the time. But when I came from 20 Chestnut Street out there for 2 or 3 hours to help milk the cows or throw some hay out or something. And my point is, people that work in different industries, their sense of smell gets compromised. And all I'm saying is, if it's an independent, and I might be wrong, I mean, maybe if it's an independent person, they may be coming out of the Gould Hotel. Maybe that's where the office is. They're totally away from the landfill, so they can smell if there's an odor. If it's a person coming off the landfill, that's a problem for me.
Okay, I
Because
understand.
their nose is compromised because they smell something all the time. Okay?
There's a protocol that I'm going to defer to Mr. Dobler on, and he'll explain
I'm not
that.
trying to negotiate a new agreement. I'm
No,
just trying to
No,
say.
but let me explain, let me explain the procedure, and just to follow up with that, is that the game plan would be for the town of Seneca Falls to respond to the complaint at the same time, so that this could not say that, no, there was no smell. A trained Seneca Falls employee paid by funds that the HCA would provide. Okay?
Yeah, that was my next point, is that that's something that Mike came to the table with and wanted. It was to make sure that the town would know that town employees will be trained to do that same kind of monitoring and complaint response. So that will be a significantly enhanced system, and the thing that follows that is equally as important to taking a complaint, and that is the resolution of the problem at the source. And I think it's on the next page of the handout. You'll see that there are a number of things that will have to be considered when there are odor complaints and odor problems emanating from the landfill. And one of the most important ones, and this is on an ongoing basis, is to reduce the size of the open face of the landfill. That's the area that's receiving waste on a current basis every day, to reduce that. The next is cover, whether that's daily cover, intermediate cover, or final capping and cover. Those are the things that are probably going to do the most to limit any odor problems. This is a menu of fairly aggressive actions, all of which Seneca Meadows will have to consider to make the fix to the problems that may occur. There's going to be an additional and enhanced monitoring of landfill gas generation and emissions at the landfill, which Bill will cover. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bill and have him pick up.
Well, Bill's bringing it, I just want to make sure we're clear. I think your point is well taken, but I think it's something that Caitlin and Mike really emphasized. You got third party, not SMI, takes the complaint. They got a website, they got a phone line, and all that stuff. And the moment they get the complaint, SMI gets it, they dispatch the people who may have the problem you're talking about. But then the town gets it at the same time. The town gets the complaints contemporaneously. There's money built in for you to dispatch your own people who don't have that issue. Who don't.
Who's the third party?
To be determined. There'll have to be that receives the complaints.
So there's party one, the landfill. Party two is the town. Who's the third?
So the
third party is an independent company that
Independent consultant.
would be taking the complaint. So we would advertise.
Oh, they take the complaint.
Right.
But they don't send the person out.
Correct.
They
They
just
take the
get
complaint,
they
and at
just
the
take
same
the
time-
complaint.
That's what I want to make sure we're clear on. So we want an independent third-party contractor. SMI pay for it, takes the complaint, then that complaint goes to SMI in the town at the same time.
They deploy their person, who you're right, is probably inside the landfill. We deploy our person who's right. Is it Gould, is home or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
So no more, people's biggest complaint is when they call the landfill and the landfill shows up in a half an hour and the person coming out never smells anything. Okay? So we're trying to eliminate that possibility.
Yeah, I get it. I just wanted to make sure it was, I just wanted to know where the person was gonna come from that's gonna go do
He'll be a town of Seneca Falls.
The sniff.
He or she will be a town of Seneca Falls employed and trained. Okay, Bill.
All right, so I'm Bill Dobler, I'm an associate partner at Barton & Judas, and as Hans said, I've been working in the landfill gas industry for over 25 years, and I work pretty much at every landfill in the state of New York, in some capacity, whether doing air permitting or odor work. This is what I've done for my whole career. One of the things you just started talking about was how the odor monitoring complaint program. The responding personnel will be a third party, a consultant or a contractor, and along with town personnel. And all of them will be trained on a couple of things, and you'll see this discussed throughout these next few slides. We keep talking about hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide is actually what you're smelling when you smell odors at the landfill. It's not methane, it's the hydrogen sulfide component of the landfill gas. So when you're talking about odors in landfill, that's the parameter that we monitor. That's what we look for. It's the most detectable component of the landfill gas, and it's detectable at very low concentrations, down to
So
5 parts
in
per
the
billion.
molecules that make up methane, there are empty spaces that other molecules can attach themselves to, right?
No.
And that's what we smell?
No, what you're...
They attach themselves to the methane?
So methane is only 50% of what's in the landfill gas. And methane is completely odorless, colorless. It's like carbon monoxide or other gases.
Right.
So methane...
Something must attach to that.
Right, so the other things that come out of the landfill have to do with the kinds of waste that are put in the landfill. And hydrogen sulfide is one of those components. It's generally in very low concentrations. So if you were talking about landfill gas being 50% methane, that's 500,000 parts per million of methane. Hydrogen sulfide, by comparison, is usually less than 1,000 parts per million in landfill gas. There's all kinds of other things that are in landfill gas too, that come from disposal of chemicals and disposal of other things that just happen in your everyday normal household waste. Some of all of that can occur in landfill gas, but the big components, 50% methane, 35% CO2, a little bit of oxygen, a little bit of nitrogen, and then you have these parts per million concentrations of all of these other things. Out of all of that, hydrogen sulfide is what you smell. It's also what they put in natural gas so you can smell it in your house. Actually, it's methyl mercaptan or sulfur mercaptan is what they put in your natural gas. It's the same odor and it's the same family of compounds, and that's why it's used, is because it's detectable at like 4 parts per billion level. So everybody will be trained. We talk about this in butanol scale. This is an ASTM procedure that we train people on, so that gives a way to classify the concentration of an odor. And then the drone monitor, handheld monitor that you should see, the orange instrument, that's kind of the world standard for detection of hydrogen sulfide compounds. That will be used to follow up on odors or to detect odors. The odor monitoring and complaint management resources that will be provided to the town engineer. As Hans said, these are really things that will be looked at by Seneca Meadows if there are complaints or if there are recurring complaints. So, for instance, reducing the size of the open face, increasing the intermediate daily cover. These are all operational things that the landfill has agreed to start looking at, they would normally look at this anyway, but it's things that they've already discussed and agreed to that would be odor management practices. One of these things, installing additional horizontal or vertical gas wells, modifications to system pressures. Again, those are more long-term fixes. Those are not immediate things. They take time to engineer and install and to do. Again, along with those lines, altering hours of operation. So these are all things that have already been discussed as ways to help manage odors, especially if there are recurring odors.
Do you know if any of these are already in place?
Actually, these are all practices that the landfill does every day. Yeah, it's
you know, I can tell you that every day they send people out to balance the well field. That's adjusting the gas pressures in the well field. Those are things that, you know, a landfill does every day in operation. So when you're tracking odors, or if there's odor complaints, one of the things, in addition to just going out and checking vacuums, is to go out and research areas or make fine adjustments to certain areas if, you know, they find something that's a problem. So on the next page, there's a picture of a drone. One of the things that's a new technology that landfills are starting to use is the use of a drone with a methane detector. Landfills of this size are all required to do a quarterly surface scan where they would walk a person would walk the surface of the landfill with a methane detector and try to find any leaks in the cover soils or leaks of landfill gas coming through the surface of the landfill. One of these new technologies is this same procedure, only done by a drone. It's incredibly fast. It's under review right now by the EPA to be a new method to get rid of the person having to walk the landfill. The drone can do it in a quarter of the time, and the tests we've seen, studies we've seen, the results are as good or better than a person walking a 30-meter interval and taking readings every 30 meters. The drone does it in a matter of a few hours, and they get way more data than a person can measure. But SMI has agreed to implement semi-annual aerial drone surveys. So on top of them having to do their quarterly surface scans where a person will walk the landfill, they are agreeing to do the drone survey twice a year also. And then they will, part of the surface scan procedure is you're looking for any place that there's more than 500 parts per million above background of methane. So that would be considered a deviation or a problem area. So those things, if they're detected by a surface scan or by the drone, they'll be corrected within 10 days. And then there are a few other things that were agreed to, including placing a minimum of 100 acres of geomembrane cap. And SMI is planning to install 4 permanent air monitoring stations around the perimeter of the landfill. So they'll be continuously monitoring for hydrogen sulfide upwind and downwind of the landfill, so on all 4 sides. So those are things that have already been discussed. Along with all this, town employees, as we discussed earlier, when a complaint comes in, town employees will also receive the complaints at the same time so that town personnel can respond. And SMI will be providing the town with monthly complaint log, and including what the results were of the investigations. And also will provide the complainant copies of the complaint log relating to his or her specific complaints. So those are some things that were already put in to the host community agreement. That's really all the landfill gas portion of it. Do you guys, does anybody have any other questions?
Okay, and again, that's obviously the Reader Digest version, but our whole emphasis from day one was odor management, odor control, odor reporting, okay? Once we came to agreement on those things, and then we moved into some other issues, and I'll briefly address them with you. Issue number 1 we moved on to, which is page 11. No longer will construction vehicles that go to and from Seneca Stone to the landfill, no longer will they be able to use Fall Street downtown area. They will have to find an alternate route. Very few garbage truck haulers come through Seneca Falls, but they would not be allowed either. Most of that comes from the thruway, but they would be included in that. On page 12, SMI will collect the whole town's garbage. Right now, SMI collects the garbage of the old town, and we use a company called Cardinal in the old village. We pay SMI. We obviously pay. We also pay Cardinal. So SMI will be doing this for free at no cost to the town, which is in the $480,000 range that we pay a year for collection. There'll be no tipping charges, nothing related to bringing the garbage to the landfill. No disposal fee would be charged to town for 5,000 tons a year, including solid waste generated. We generate something at the waste treatment plant called sludge that will be allowed to be brought to the landfill at no charge also. Okay? SMI will continue to support the Seneca Falls Fire Department, and they will provide up to $30,000 a year for the Bridgeport Fire District, which includes Seneca Falls. And this money will be used on a yearly basis to purchase equipment that is needed in case of some serious fire at the landfill. On page 14, I would ask you to look very closely at that one. When the host agreement is executed, SMI will provide the town of Seneca Falls with $1 million check. One-time payment of $2 million upon receipt of all necessary permits to construct the Valley landfill expansion. So once we provide our permit, once the planning board provides their permit, once obviously the DEC provides their permit, there'll be a $2 million signing bonus. This would be a one-time benefit to the town. And the third, on top of the $1 million, on top of the $2 million, the annual fee that SMI will be paying the town of Seneca Falls is $10 million a year. Okay, 10. Right now, depending on tonnage brought in, it averages about $3.1 million a year. So now we're talking about $10 million over the life of the contract. Okay?
Is that because it's more money per ton or because there's so many more tons?
I'm sorry?
Is that because it's more money per ton?
More money, significantly more money per ton.
Or
Significantly more. Okay? Yeah. So they will be, if the DEC gets them a permit, they will be permitted as how much the daily intake could be. Okay? So that's something the DEC would determine, but again, significantly more per ton. Approximately $250,000 paid to the town for engineering and wastewater treatment services annually. So anything that our town engineers do at SMI, that will be any legal things that will be covered in the host agreement by SMI. This all comes out to approximately $173,625,000 in payments to the town over the 15-year operating life of the permit. Again, you missed that number, $173,625,000. Okay? That money, town can be used for some of the things that we sit here and talk about every night. So we were looking to, if you go to page, I'm skipping over a couple things. If you go over to page 19, it would be my strong recommendation that we allocate the money into different reserves, okay, in different accounts that moving forward, Peter will be, and I are identifying this Peter, again, whenever, if it happens, it happens. But for example, 2.5 for property tax stabilization, okay? So that money would go in there every year and property taxes would be greatly reduced, okay? And that would be going there for the next 15 years. And after the landfill closes, it'd still be plenty of resources in that account to keep property taxes low and low as possible, okay? Again, these are just numbers. This is just the team's mind idea of what we could do. $250,000 for odor testing and response. $2.5 million for an athletic complex. There's, from day one, I wanted to build an athletic complex. So many of our residents have young children go to Marcellus and have to drag their kids. So it's also become a topic of the comprehensive team. I know it's an idea that Wendy Crane has had for many years as well as other people on the board. So $2.5 million we could be spent to build a beautiful athletic complex, indoor soccer, all kinds of indoor facilities for our young people and our older people to enjoy. $2 million in wastewater treatment improvements. This is a year now, okay? 1.5 million drinking water plant, 1 million for other capital improvements, 1 million in the contingency budget. And again, reserve funds would be set up, my recommendation, so that some board comes in here 5 years and says, you know what, we're gonna take all the money that we're getting and do something with it. I don't know what we're gonna do, we're gonna do something with it, okay? This will protect our future people in Seneca Falls, not only us, but our kids and grandkids, okay? 2 keys here. Key number 1, this is contingent only on the DEC giving them permit. Key number 2, it's a memorandum of understanding that you'll be considering. It's not a legal document that you'd be approving. I guess key number 3 would be the public will have a whole month to review this. In September, I will have the same players in the room at that meeting, and they can provide any insights like they did tonight or answer any questions. This will be completely transparent, completely out in the open. September's meeting, people want to come and question it or make public comment, we have a venue to do that, okay? If people who are pro-landfill want to come and make public comment, we have a venue to do that, okay? So that's what it's going to be moving forward, okay? Anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm sorry about the time of the day,
I do.
but I'm sorry?
Yeah. I didn't see it when you went over the things. Are we still gonna treat the leachate for the landfill?
The leachate is a completely separate agreement.
Oh, a separate agreement. Okay, all right, all right, thanks.
Okay?
All right.
That'll be a resolution that we'll have to consider here in a couple of months.
All right.
Okay?
I didn't know.
Mike.
Just a quick
Yes.
question. So in the host community benefit payments, it says that there's a one-time payment of $1 million upon the execution of the HCA, and then the one-time $1 million payments from the other ones. Isn't the HCA only valid if the permits get filed and accepted?
Brody?
You know,
Yeah. So the timing of it, and those things aren't, the order of those payments are not going to be determined yet, right?
Yeah.
So the millions upon execution of the HCA, which the first thing that's going to happen is the DEC is going to finish their seeker process. So when their seeker process is done, that seeker is going to be used by the town planning board to go through their process for local approvals. What exact moment, once the DEC is done with their seeker, their permit actually gets issued, and when the site plan actually gets issued, the exact timing of that is not knowable yet, but those milestones will receive balloon payments, whatever order they occur.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you. So with that, I apologize for the lateness of night. I need a motion to pay the bills.
I make a motion.
All in favor to pay the bills, say aye. Aye. I'm sorry, but I have to do this. I move that the board go into executive session, discuss ongoing litigation pursuant to Public Officers Law 105D. Also to following real property decisions, and also for personnel issues. Can I have a second for that motion, please?
Can we pay the water and sewer credits?
Okay, did we?
Did we pay those?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There is money, there were pool credits.
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor of going to executive session, please say aye. Aye. All in favor? Thanks, guys. There's going to be no action out of executive session, so if I was you, I'd go home. Kathy, you can pull the plug. Okay, there's nothing there. Lisa, thank you.